of drying up over here. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second full half-day session of the January EBC public hearings. By way of background, I'm going to be more brief than I have been in the past, because I think if you're here, you are fully aware of what we're doing and what we are asking of you as presenters. So, of course, we're an independent commission established by the Legislature of Alberta, and the bios of each of us are on our website. You can feel free to check those out if you haven't already. We've got two tasks before us as an electoral boundary commission. Deal with the substantial increase in population in Alberta over the last 8 years, or 8 to 10 years, and allocate boundaries for 89 electoral districts rather than 87. Each electoral district, voters in each district elect their respective member to sit in the Legislative Assembly. And as you'll notice from the graph before you, the population has increased substantially, and we estimate just over 800,000 since the last report of 2017. Surprisingly, all that population increase did not move evenly across the province. That's what makes our job a little bit of a challenge. Back in 2017, when the last report was done, the average population per electoral division was 46,697, with a variance plus or minus 25%, as you note on the slide. This time around, with our population of 4.8 million, between 89 different electoral districts, the average population is just under 55,000. And the 25% variance up or down, as you can see, ranges from 41,000 to just over 68,000. The task of our commission is to hear from Albertans how best we are able to draw the boundaries to provide for effective representation. That is a key word that you will see throughout our interim report, and it will be no doubt contained in our final report as well. Effective representation is the Canadian standard, and it's not one person, one vote, or rep by pop, as is prominent in the U.S. We were established in late March, early April as a commission, and over that period of time we did several things. First of all, we spent a lot of time agreeing on the standard of population for the demographics for the province, and that explanation is noted in our interim report. We reviewed several written submissions, hundreds of written submissions that were given to us as a commission, and we held public hearings throughout late May and virtually all of June, and we traveled the province to do that. After that, we worked closely with staff from Elections Alberta, basically creating maps and creating boundaries for 89 proposed electoral districts. That culminated in our interim report, and you'll see that was submitted to the Speaker of the Legislature and tabled in late October. In completing our report, we covered all the legislated criteria that give us authorization to create boundaries or create electoral districts, and we had as our focus understandable and clear boundaries, taking into effect the principle of effective representation. After our interim report was submitted to the Speaker, we opened it up for public submissions, and we got a lot of them from November 3rd to December 19th. And we're wading through those publications. Some of them are short and brief, some of them are more extensive, but we certainly have heard from Albertans across the province. Now that brings us to the stage we're at today. Today, Monday, January 12th, is our first day of 2 solid weeks of public representation, or public hearings. And as you may know, we're in Calgary for 2.5 days. Then we move to Edmonton for a couple of days this week, and we're going to go virtual next week and hear from Albertans. We made the decision not to travel in winter, although the weather may have been amenable to us. Maybe we should have traveled, but we decided to stay in Calgary and Edmonton and catch the rest of the province virtually. So that's our task this week and next week, and we have a fairly full agenda this afternoon. So I'm going to go to the list. The first presenter, Mr. Colton Nickel. And as you come forward, please identify yourself. Tell us what area you live in and what electoral district or districts you're commenting on. And it's nice to know if you presented before, and tell us if you presented in the first round, which I think you did. No, you didn't?
I must have had a look-alike. No, it wasn't me.
Okay, okay. It was your brother, your twin brother. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. So we're just pulling up a presentation here, but just in the meantime, yeah, my name's Colton Nickel. I'm the senior planner and intergovernmental liaison with the town of Okotoks. So I'll be speaking on behalf of the town of Okotoks as a municipality this afternoon. I'd also note that we did submit a written submission collaboratively with our partners at Foothills County as well as the town of Diamond Valley. However, I'm not speaking on their behalf this afternoon. I'll stick to the town of Okotoks perspective. I'll just use the mouse here. Okay, I'll go. Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this submission on the draft electoral boundaries. As I noted, I just want to acknowledge that we did our written submission to the Commission with the town of Diamond Valley and Foothills County as well. So I'll be speaking on the existing Highwood riding, which the current boundaries encompass the town of Okotoks, portions of Foothills County, and the town of Diamond Valley. The revised boundaries proposed in the report for the Calgary-Okotoks riding include the town of Okotoks, portions of Foothills County, and then a portion of southwest Calgary. The southwest Calgary portion includes many building out new communities such as Silverado and the other ones named here. So I want to provide a bit of background and explain why the current boundaries generally work well and why the proposed revisions to the boundaries should primarily look at keeping these communities of interest together, so Foothills County, Diamond Valley, and Okotoks, rather than creating a hybrid division that includes the city of Calgary. And it does, I will say, it does say something when you can get all three councils to sign on to one letter. That is no easy feat, as some from previous regional work may be aware. So oh geez, this is a little trigger happy here.
Common enemy does that sometimes.
Yeah, not an enemy, just, okay, so there's a significant number of region-specific important capital projects that Okotoks, Diamond Valley, and Foothills County Town Councils work on with our elected MLA to advance through provincial funding and advocacy. Examples for this include a new regional water pipeline, which we worked on together, continued advocacy for a new interchange at 338th Avenue and Highway 2, as well as other general infrastructure grants. With the town of Diamond Valley, we also have a lot of shared services and community connections with them as a municipality, as well as lots of shared service arrangements with our partners at Foothills County. So overall, the existing electoral district incorporates individuals and families who utilize the same area school districts, recreation centers, and programs, attend similar geographic community events, and rely on the same key pieces of infrastructure. Your report notes that municipal boundaries as well as school district boundaries are key items of importance when looking at electoral divisions, and we do have minimal overlap with South Calgary in these areas. The south portion of the city of Calgary is simply not as integrated into the overall electoral division from an infrastructure or social connection standpoint. It has fully different school jurisdictions, different key pieces of infrastructure that are used, and different recreational programming options. So typically, for example, hockey programs end at that border, so you don't see that overlap in kind of integration with different communities. Having an MLA cover both Okotoks, South Calgary, as well as the rural aspects of the county would be very challenging and have an impact on the effective representation of the communities within the riding. It's already, as the report notes well, I think, incredibly challenging for rural MLAs to attend the range of events and listen and hear the priorities of citizens in a rural area. And when you add that onto the vast diversity of communities within the city of Calgary as it builds out, as well as the town of Okotoks, it definitely creates concerns from the town of Okotoks standpoint on the effective representation piece. The next kind of key point I want to make is on the population breakdown. When looking at the city of Calgary portion alone, there's approved area structure plans in place that'll bring the population to over 64,000 people. When you're looking at the average of an electoral division and the build-out rates of the city of Calgary over the past few years and what's projected into the coming years, it's very likely that the electoral divisions will need significantly redrawn at the time of the next electoral commission. So this wouldn't be a long-term electoral division, which makes it challenging for that relationship creation with the MLA's office. We then look at Diamond Valley's population growth, and it's looking at continued growth, and it's recently updated its municipal development plan, and recent applications definitely look like it will be moving forward with at least a 2 to 3% growth rate. The portions within Foothills County are the highest growing portions of that municipality. And then finally, the town of Okotoks, as we're starting to see a regional water line likely come on in coordination with Foothills County later in 2026, that'll further accelerate the population of this riding. When looking at this holistically, it seems that adding in the city of Calgary to the overall riding would result in this riding not remaining within that population average for very long, and as noted, city of Calgary likely becoming its own electoral division very shortly. Jumping ahead here. Okay, so We then looked at option 2, the alternate electoral district that was proposed by the commission, and the town wishes to note appreciation for the consideration of this alternate district, recognizing not every proposed district had an alternate. So while this map is preferable to the Calgary Okotoks map, it does still result in challenges in terms of further dividing our neighbor Foothills County into the additional Banff-Jasper riding. Portions of the county would then shift into Banff-Jasper with this option, leading them to have additional MLAs to work with. There are less commonalities between these mountain communities and the Foothills County municipality, which is why the town and county, as well as town of Diamond Valley, work together on proposing an alternate map with our submission that looks to follow municipal boundaries more clearly. For your consideration, I pull up the alternate map here on the screen. This generally incorporates the areas that we feel would make the most sense for provincial electoral divisions that meet the legal requirements outlined in pages 6 and 7 of the Electoral Commission's interim report. Primarily, this map focuses on incorporating areas with a shared sense of community, ranging from shared services to other key community boundaries such as school divisions, key roadways, and natural geographic boundary features. As noted in the report, other provisions in the Act allow for considerations of impacts to adjacent ridings, such as Banff-Jasper, in terms of population variances or size changes that may be required. Allowing these potential variances if needed would allow the Foothills region to stay largely intact while keeping the very different mountain regions of Banff-Jasper in a separate riding that respects municipal boundaries and have more commonalities and shared funding priorities. The riding sizes and distances of what we propose are also more manageable for an MLA to effectively represent all constituents. So in closing, the town of Okotoks just wishes to outline our interests in not having the city of Calgary incorporated in an electoral division that encompasses our town, as well as Foothills County and Diamond Valley. Our three communities, we have many interconnections from a servicing, infrastructure, and advocacy perspective that would potentially be negatively impacted by expanding the riding to incorporate the city, which has very different funding priorities and reduced community connections. I want to thank you for your time today and happy to take any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Nickel. Can you go back to that
Yeah,
map,
I was
please,
just
that you
asking
proposed?
that, the last picture.
Did you, and I'm going to take the prerogative to ask the first question, do you have a population for your proposed electoral division?
Yeah, so we did, for the proposal, I can only speak to Okotoks, Diamond Valley today. I don't have the population for High River Vulcan. We worked with the GIS team of Foothills County, Diamond Valley, and ours, and we were about 60,000 people for the Okotoks, Diamond Valley, based on what we proposed here. Yeah, the
Okay.
top, that
Okay.
top one, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Mr. Clark?
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the, I don't know who exactly to give credit to this, for this, but as far as I'm aware, this is the first time an Electoral Boundaries Commission has proposed an option B, and I think that really reflects our struggle in trying to square the circle, right? And for a lot of the reasons that I think you've outlined, and essentially it was us putting out to the public, we're not sure. And so we give you a couple of different options, and I appreciate that you've come back and given us another option. And the other thing, I guess I would just say, you're exactly right. It is not entirely unheard of, but it is noteworthy that Okotoks and Foothills County and Diamond Valley are coming together in agreement on a submission. So that certainly carries some weight. I did want to ask you about, and you may not know, and if you don't, that's okay, but Eden Valley, the two Indigenous reserves down towards Longview and west of High River, can you speak at all to that connection with those Eden Valley reserves with either Okotoks or the region generally? Our thinking was to connect those with other Indigenous reserves within Banff-Jasper. That was at least the sort of rationale that we had in mind. But maybe if you know much about it, feel free to speak to it, and if not, that's okay too.
Through the chair, no, that did come up in our council discussions on this, and there was that thought that maybe that's why the commission had put that area with the other, and definitely respect that viewpoint and that perspective. I can't speak on behalf of the county, but I do believe there are some relationships and work that does take place with the Eden Valley Reserve, but like I said, I can't speak on behalf of the county. It's just peripheral knowledge.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin?
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation. And first question is, are you going to leave it behind so we can review it again?
Yep, through the chair, happy to leave it behind.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a very particular question looking at your map. Does that include up in the northwest corner, does that include Bragg Creek area? Is that
Through the
Bragg
chair,
Creek?
no, I don't think it doesn't stretch up into Bragg Creek because that falls within Rocky View
Oh, I see.
County, and this just wants to follow the Foothills County municipal boundaries.
Actually, Bragg Creek would be more east, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's more up. It's more north and east, isn't it?
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So in the very far northeast corner of your blue proposed electoral district, is there a village up there, a town of any kind?
Through the chair, just the county, it's just within the Foothills County. I'm not sure
That's
if
just the
there's.
county
Yeah, it'd be
limits.
part of the county.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
No questions. Thanks for the presentation, though.
John?
No questions for me, thank you. And that's highway.
I've got a question that's slightly, was touched on by Mr. Clark. Like, we really wrestle. We wrestle with several things. One of them is hybrids. One of them is, the overall one is effective representation. And this, as Mr. Clark has said, we just said, we're not sure. You know, we want public feedback. And we certainly got it, which is good. And I think it's overwhelmingly in one direction. But tell me, how did, this report was a catalyst for your municipality and others. How did you kind of get to this? How much time did you spend coming up with this?
Through the chair, for sure. It definitely involved multiple council meetings across and working closely with Foothills County's administration and council, as well as Diamond Valley's administration and council. We also utilized our intermunicipal committee, which
Okay.
the town of Okotoks has with Foothills County, to bring forward this presentation and have these discussions. And we also work closely with our school divisions that we also have within the area, Foothills School Division and Christ the Redeemer School Division, which I believe you'll be hearing from after me, and wanted to make sure we're all on the same page of understanding, and everyone had largely the same general opinion, so we definitely all worked together to come to the report.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. It's much appreciated, and this presentation will be left with us, and that'll be helpful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You're excused, but please, if you can, stay for the rest of the presentations. It would be helpful. Our next presenter is Michael Kilcommons.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Make yourself comfortable and tell us where you are from.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Michael Kilcommons. I'm coming in from Okotoks today, and I am representing Christ the Redeemer Catholic School Division. I'm an associate superintendent there. So we have about 10,000 students in 7 communities, stretching from Canmore practically on the BC border to Oyen on the Saskatchewan border. But I'm speaking more so towards the Highwood Electoral Division right now.
Okay. And where's the headquarters for Christ the Redeemer? Where's your office?
Our main center, about half of our population, and our central office are in Okotoks.
Okay.
Good to go?
Yes, please.
So I just said, our largest population representation is in Foothills County, which includes Okotoks, High River, and Diamond Valley, and then several other smaller communities within those boundaries. Wishing to speak to the proposed changes. Right now, Okotoks, High River, and Diamond Valley and parts of Foothills County are in the Highwood Electoral District. One of the proposed changes, labeled Alberta Overview Option A, represented the creation of the new Calgary Okotoks District, adding a portion of Southwest Calgary to our riding, or very egocentric to think they were added to us, but combined. An argument for the change has been presented that it balances population and maintains clear boundaries. But from our point of view, just speaking on behalf of the Catholic school system, it does raise some serious challenges. The MLA for this district would have to juggle 2 major urban centers plus rural areas, making effective representation harder. And with Calgary's projected growth, 60,000 new residents in the next decade, this boundary will likely need to be redrawn again soon. Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools is deeply invested in this process as we serve students and families across a broad and interconnected geographic region. We provide transportation for many rural students who travel daily from surrounding areas into these school communities. This regional service model requires careful coordination across municipal boundaries and reflects the lived reality of families who depend on integrated rural-urban education systems. From an education perspective, we are concerned that the first model of the proposed realignment would place our communities within a hybrid riding connected to the City of Calgary. Such a configuration would not reflect the shared community identity, service relationships, or governance realities of our region. The rural and small urban sensibilities that shape our communities, including approaches to infrastructure, transportation, and education, differ meaningfully from those of a large metropolitan center and would risk being diluted within a Calgary-focused electoral division. Our school division operates within a distinct rural-urban context where community connections, shared services, and collaborative planning are essential to student success. Families often live in one municipality, attend school in another, and rely on regional transportation and services that span municipal lines. Maintaining cohesion among the town of Okotoks and Diamond Valley and larger portions of Foothills County within a single electoral division better supports effective advocacy, clear communication, and strong working relationships between MLAs, municipal councils, and public institutions such as school divisions. We're also really concerned about the potential downstream impacts of electoral boundary charges on school division ward alignment. Our school division's ward structure has been intentionally designed to balance geography, representation, and community identity. Any shift that increases the likelihood of our wards being annexed into a metro-based school division would significantly affect our ability to respond to the needs of rural and small urban families. Metro school divisions operate at a different scale and under different pressures, which do not align with the approaches and sensibilities required to effectively support education in our communities. Our review of the documentation provided to us suggests a second alternative district that excludes Calgary and keeps Okotoks and Diamond Valley and parts of Foothills County together. That was the option B. This option better reflects our shared services and community connections, though it has a slightly higher population variance. Our school division, representing students and families in Okotoks, High River, Diamond Valley, and Foothills County, are advocating for a third option: keep our communities together, avoid hybrid districts with Calgary, and align boundaries within municipal borders. This approach supports effective representation for our school divisions and long-term stability. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Evans, any questions?
Currently,
Evans.
in terms of your school division, do you have multiple MLAs representing your configuration? And if so, who are they? And how would it change in terms of what we proposed?
Well, taking a look at just in the Okotoks area, yes, we have RJ Sigurdsson. And so the proposed change would have us looking at somebody for Okotoks, Calgary, somebody for the points further south.
So for right now, you have one MLA?
Yes, for this region, yes. We've got other ones down in Oyen and Brooks and whatnot, of course.
Right. For that, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sampson?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin?
Thank you, and thanks for coming. And I just want you to repeat, I think, what you had said, that your domain, as it were, as Okotoks, I mean, its footprint is Okotoks, Diamond Valley, High River. Is that
correct?
Roughly speaking, the catchment area for your school?
That is the one that we're addressing right now, yes.
Okay. So do you have a lot of planning associated with the High River component? You didn't otherwise speak of it.
We do on a regular basis,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Clark?
Thank you very much. No, I think I got my question out of the way on the previous presenter, but really genuinely appreciate your submission, and thank you for coming.
As you can appreciate, having probably from your review of a report, hybrids is a challenge for us, how we implement them, and we gave you an option. But you've used a word that I don't think has been used often, metro. Now, we've always, historically, it's been urban, rural, Calgary, Edmonton, the rest of the province. You've injected a word metro. And what do you mean by that?
Great question. It's an education term. It's widely used within Alberta education. The metros, school divisions are Calgary Catholic and Calgary Public, and Edmonton Public and Edmonton Catholic. Everybody in education refers to those as the metros. They have half of the, I don't even know the number, half or 60% of the province's student population.
Okay.
And they do run differently than we do.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to refer to that word from here on in.
It's not a slur.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions arising from what I said? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. And I'll excuse you to the gallery. And please stay if you can for the rest of the presentations. Sorry, Jane? Yes. Jane? Okay. Sorry, Ms. Jane Martin, please come forward. You were here first this afternoon, but you ended up having to wait till the third spot.
No worries, thank you. So yes, I am Jane Martin, and I'm in Calgary Glenmore, and I was also here for round one.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have lived in the community of Palliser for the past 6 years, which is in the riding of Calgary Glenmore. And prior to that, I lived in the community of Kingsland for 32 years. And I would like to thank the commissioners for listening to me during my initial testimony. When asked which communities I would include to increase the size of Calgary Glenmore, I suggested Kingsland and North Glenmore Park. In your proposed boundaries for Calgary Glenmore, I was very pleased to see the addition of the community of Kingsland and the portion of the community of North Glenmore Park that is located south of Glenmore Trail, southwest. During a 2010 boundary review, Kingsland was included in the Calgary Glenmore Electoral District. Following the 2017 Electoral Boundaries Commission, Kingsland became part of the Calgary Acadia riding. Calgary Glenmore would welcome back Kingsland. I agree, as per your interim report, that your new proposed boundaries will be easier to understand. Glenmore Trail would then become a distinct boundary for the northern end of the electoral district of Calgary Glenmore. To me, it makes perfect sense to include the portion of the community of North Glenmore Park that resides south of Glenmore Trail. It is located just east of Lakeview, which is already part of Calgary Glenmore. Furthermore, the community of Kingsland also borders Glenmore Trail southwest and is adjacent to the communities of Kelvin Grove and Chinook Park, which are currently in Calgary Glenmore. Kingsland itself could be considered very self-sufficient with a mixture of commercial and residential properties. There are a number of strip malls, 2 motels, gas stations, liquor stores, coffee shops, restaurants, and a brewery. In addition, there are medical buildings and pharmacies. There are 3 Christian churches, a separate elementary school, an out-of-school care club, a daycare center, and a supportive living center. There is a substantial Jewish population residing in Calgary Glenmore, which is home to 3 synagogues, a Jewish seniors residence, Jewish Recreation Center, Jewish Learning Institute, Calgary Jewish Federation, and Calgary Jewish Academy. Given the current global tensions, I think it is even more important that we strive to keep our vibrant Jewish community together in Calgary Glenmore. Many seniors also reside in Calgary Glenmore with access to 3 nursing homes, 2 long-term care facilities, 2 medical centers, a hospice, and a hospital. The demographics are changing with more families now residing in Calgary Glenmore. Located within Calgary Glenmore are 15 public schools, including a junior high for gifted children and William Roper Hull School for students with behavioral, emotional, social, and mental health challenges. There are also 3 separate schools and 2 charter schools, including a girls-only school. Calgary Glenmore also has 4 child care centers and an orphanage. There are numerous playgrounds and green spaces, soccer fields, baseball diamonds, rinks, basketball courts, a skateboard park, an athletic park and sports field, the Paperny Family JCC Community and Recreation Center, and the Southland Leisure Center. For the most part, regardless of their age, our constituents tend to be more active and have chosen to live in Calgary Glenmore due to its close proximity to the Glenmore Reservoir, Glenmore Parks, and Fish Creek Provincial Park, where they can take part in water sports and have access to an extensive pathway system where they can walk, jog, or cycle. In addition, Calgary Glenmore has tennis and pickleball courts, a racket club, and off-leash dog parks. By including Kingsland, Calgary Glenmore would also benefit from the addition of a twin arena, a toboggan and sledding hill, baseball diamond, and an off-leash dog park. Adding the southern portion of the community of North Glenmore Park would further enrich Calgary Glenmore with a golf course. Calgary Glenmore is the perfect example of a riding sharing geographic commonality bordered by the Glenmore Reservoir, Glenmore Parks, and Fish Creek Provincial Park. I think it is important to keep provincial boundaries aligned with municipal boundaries. This is critical to ensure ridings do not lump disparate communities together. Your proposed boundaries for Calgary Glenmore are very fair. It would be very challenging for an MLA to be expected to properly represent the differing needs faced by constituents living both inside and outside of urban areas in a hybrid scenario. Thank you also for recognizing the rapid rates of growth in Calgary and Edmonton. I would like to see another additional seat added to both Calgary and Edmonton. Given the population growth of both of these cities, they are currently underrepresented. As part of the Boundaries Commission, I respect that you have an important role to play in our democratic process to not manipulate the boundaries, to keep our communities intact, and prevent gerrymandering through a fair and democratic process. I thank you all for your time this afternoon and your careful consideration throughout this ongoing process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. Ms. Martin. Mr. Clark, any questions or comments?
No questions at all, no, but with our thanks, and yeah, I'm glad it's nice to hear that some people feel that the boundaries have worked out. I hoped it would, so.
Stole my line.
But yeah, no, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Susan?
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so rare that we get it right.
Well, I have a question.
Certainly.
You mentioned that the large cities are underrepresented.
Yes, I think that's where the largest population growth has taken place, is in Calgary and Edmonton.
Okay, even in our proposed interim report, you still think that is the situation?
I do, because I think what happened in Edmonton, for instance, one was eliminated, another one created, so really they didn't get any additions, right?
Okay.
We got 2, but I still think, well, I think probably Calgary's population growth has been even larger than Edmonton's, but yes, I would still like to see one more additional one in Calgary and in Edmonton.
If we were looking at the province purely through the population lens and had one person, one vote principle, you'd be very accurate.
Oh,
But
okay.
I hope you appreciate that population is not the only factor that we
Certainly.
have to deal with.
You've got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, and yeah, squaring that circle is a challenge, certainly. But thank you for your comments and your commendations. And I'm going to excuse you now to return to the gallery,
you.
but please stay if you
I will.
can and hear the other presentations.
Thank you so much.
We may have some dialogue after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Our next presenter, Dan Williams. Mr. Dan Williams.
good afternoon, Commission.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming, and just take a moment, get comfortable, and
Thank you.
identify for the record where you, what electoral district you're from.
Sure. So thank you. I've not been to one of these before, so I'm grateful for the opportunity. My name is Dan Williams. I'm the MLA for the constituency of Peace River in the northern stretches of the province. I'm hoping to present to you orally, and if you guys see fit, maybe have a short conversation surrounding your proposed draft boundaries. Can you guys hear me okay? That's fine? Okay. I think you guys understand the task cut out in front of you, as you mentioned with your previous presenter, and I think I made comments co-authoring a letter on October 29th that we sent to the Commission, hoping that you could see some of the concern that the Northern MLAs had, myself included, surrounding the elimination of a Northern constituency. I think your predecessors put it very on the nose when, in their final report, in the previous boundary redistribution, that if we just simply removed one Northern riding every cycle we went through, we'd very quickly end up with very few Northern ridings left. But inevitably, as you guys know, the challenge is that effective representation is an essential piece to what it looks like to do this job in a fair, objective, and above-board manner. And I appreciate very much you have a difficult task in front of you. The current draft that you have, and I'll spend just a minute or two speaking to that before I speak to what I hope we can move towards, has either eliminated the constituency of Peace River or Lesser Slave Lake, depends on how you want to frame it, look at it, but we are one short in the north. And the very large new riding of Mackenzie has a number of challenges along with it. And fundamentally, the nature of what it means to represent a riding is one that is tied to the physical geography of the place. So if you know Roger Scruton, an English philosopher, public thinker, he says, it is because we're able to define our membership in territorial terms, speaking of the nation at this point, but it applies equally to our constituencies. Because we're able to define our membership in territorial terms, that we in Western countries enjoy elemental freedoms that are foundational political order. And he contrasts that with defining your identity in religious and ethnic and racial terms, which obviously we think is a challenge. And fundamentally trying to create ridings based on place is an extension of this principle, that we are people of place, and that the job of the representative at the provincial and federal level is to represent a people who live there. And so with the proposed, and I know you guys have a difficult challenge, but the riding where Calling Lake and Indian Cabins are in the same constituency, they may share common ethnic backgrounds, but nonetheless, whether or not a riding arena or a cul-de-sac is paved or a new water treatment plant is put in Calling Lake, has absolutely little benefit to those, despite similar ethnic backgrounds of those in Indian Cabins. It is fundamentally a question what binds us together. When I say we in the legislature representing my constituents, it is not a question of religious or cultural or ethnic identity that makes us we. When I represent the people of Peace River, I say we as a people of place, connected to a geography. And that inevitably is going to create physical limitations on how we can fairly represent them and say we in a meaningful way and have a connection between us. So when we are talking about a community where the southern half of my constituency is closer to the US border by drive time than it would be to the northern half of the constituency of Mackenzie, then that would be a real challenge to have a sense of we connected to a place. And so the fundamental argument that is made by the Northern MLAs is that, yes, there needs to be a consideration, as the legislation puts out properly, surrounding proportional representation on population. But it also importantly allows deviation of 25% as the norm, which we highly suggest that you use that opportunity to use the 25% deviation to achieve effective representation so that those who are represented with a connection to a physical place, to their neighbors, and can have common interests across that riding. And also, of course, the exceptions, the 4 that are allowed within the legislation surrounding the 50% deviation, variation. That's also an important consideration. It needs to be there under those criteria when met. for having populations that deviate beyond just the 25%. And if we cannot make those accommodations, I understand the need in Edmonton and Calgary to make sure we have representation, and I want to rob none of those citizens of their important electoral voice. But the fact remains that if we continue to eliminate, as the point you made previously, Justice Miller, to your previous interlocutor, we will not have effective representation in the north or many rural parts of this province, despite them being an absolutely integral part of our common heritage and, importantly, our economic future across the province. So marrying those would be our hope, to replace the riding in the north that was lost and find accommodation through the deviations, variations allowed within the legislation. And my general rule of thumb, as a conservative, I think I can say with my hat on, is be conservative, and those constituencies that have been around since 1909, as I noted in my letter for Lesser Slave Lake, or 1905 since Peace River, those political associations originally built around watersheds, and when there was no highway, it really was the Peace River itself that brought the vast majority of those who are homesteaders to Manning, to Peace River, and to Lacrete and Fort Vermilion, through that natural community, economic, social, and since 1905 and 1909 politically. And so keeping those as much as possible in place is honoring the legacy and the institutions built up around those ridings that have existed far beyond any of us have been in the province. And I think that is going to make it easier and more intelligible for local constituents to continue organizing along those same lines. So obviously there needs to be variations within that. I appreciate that there will be tweaks and changes, but wholesale upending of these constituencies that have been a part of our fabric since the creation of our province, I think would cause more consternation and would reduce the ability to effectively represent for a number of factors. And I'll refer you again to that co-authored letter from October 29th as an important submission. Happy to take any questions. I think I've chewed up more than my fair share of time, knowing you have others.
Well, thank you, and we always appreciate hearing from those people that knock on doors and drive house to house, representing constituents in the Legislative Assembly. I will hold my questions off. I'm going to start with Mr. Evans first, and any questions or comments, John?
So I just want to make sure I understand. I've got you. So we pulled up. You're in Mackenzie. You would be in the new Mackenzie, or you are in the.
Well, my constituency would be divided into multiple, but a large share of it would be the new Mackenzie, the northern half. The hometown I live in is Lacrete, but I also represent Peace River with my family, my extended family in Peace River and Grimshaw, which would now be in what was Central Peace Notley, and I'm not sure if it keeps the same name, but it extends north and it takes Manning, Keg River, et cetera, all the way up to Paddle. So my current constituency would be divided into, I think, 3 technically, but lion's share would be in those 2. And I was largely referring to Mackenzie as that one that is sprawling across that diagonal from northwest down towards southeast.
And so do I understand that it's the community, there's a community of interest, connectivity that we haven't taken into consideration sufficiently?
If I read the report, there was a big consideration based on ethnic background as well for the creation of Mackenzie, and it becomes so large and unwieldy, it becomes very hard to find common interest in spite of any ethnic common background, was the point I was driving at.
Okay,
So a community of interest is, to me, local and territorial. And so if you can find common threads between people demographically that don't live near each other, it becomes very, very hard to truly effectively represent. Because in the end, part of my job is getting money for a road widening on 697, and that matters a lot to the folks that live around Highway 697. It does not matter to folks that live down on Highway 2. And so when it gets very, very large, it gets very, very hard to have common interest.
Okay, so can you help us by telling us where the communities of interest do lie?
I would say when you say communities of interest, the ones that I think ought to remain together.
Right.
Sure. So I'd say the threads within my current community would be Peace River through to Manning, High Level, and that area towards the northwest of the province, and Lacrete. And there are many challenges. I include Fort Vermilion historically in that as well. There are many challenges because I understand.
Okay,
when you
hold
get,
on.
Yep.
Slow down. Peace River to,
Peace River, Grimshaw, Manning, High Level,
okay,
Lacrete, Fort Vermilion would be the large centers that I'd say. Large, some of these are very small.
Peace River, Grimshaw, Manning,
High level.
High level.
High Level,
Fort Vermilion.
Fort Vermilion, Lacrete.
okay.
Yep. I understand that there
and
may be
why?
need to trade at times. Why? Well, first off, because it is that way, and I don't think that's an unfair argument. I think that
'Cause that's not
historical,
really an-
political relationships have existed with almost that physical geography since the creation, and inevitably, when people start to align that way, those relationships don't stop. And so I think that is the easiest reason to say why. I think it's natural because the watershed, as I said before, the highway did not exist meaningfully until the 1950s. And so those communities did organically grow up along the river, meaningfully, like until very recent in memory. Post-World War II was when we started to see many of the current highways be in place. So I think that makes sense because it follows the flow of the river.
So the water flow.
I'd say that's the easiest historical argument. But if it were some other historical argument, I'd still say because it is. And I don't
Okay.
think that's unfair. And I'm not trying to be cheeky.
But it's like defining white by saying the definition of white is white. But I
No, I
understand
think
what
it's
you're
saying
saying.
that because we've set up those relationships, politically, social, economic, will not be changed because of the very important work that 5 members on the commission do.
Yeah, it's a historical based and
Mm-hmm.
developed over time.
And based out of that are things that are not, even though it started off as a political organization in terms of the constituency, it's now taken on another immutable qualities that are not related to your decisions, unfortunately. So you have to consider them now as facts that are not within your control.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Anything other
that seems a
than-
bit abstract, but I
No,
hope it made sense.
Anything other than the water flow and the historical foundation?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the economic relationships that you see, they're similar. Forestry would be the common thread throughout those communities. And I'd say more than forestry, you even look at the mills themselves. The ecosystem of byproduct and use is inevitable. This oil and gas service industry is also connected for sure. Our sports leagues are connected with the North Peace Sports League. And now there are obviously some exceptions to that where you will connect into a few other communities, but by and large, those communities play in the same minor sports teams. I think that it's broad in terms of the details that folks have integrated with each other socially, economically, politically.
Okay, if the chair will allow me to ask one more question. If you were right, may I?
Yep, succinct, succinct.
I was just gonna go ahead with the question, but I probably should get an answer. If you were gonna redraw the boundaries, where would you redraw them?
Well, I'd understand. I'll say that from the current boundaries, there will always be a need to consider population, of course, was the point. And if you needed to extend south or east or west on the edges to include or exclude certain populations, immediate neighboring, for example, if you looked at Peace River, there's a continuity of community going down through Berwyn and Brownvale and Fairview that are very closely connected to Peace River. And of course, they're also closely connected to Fairview and Spirit River and other areas towards Sexsmith. So there are lines that you must draw, and I appreciate that. I'd say the same could be true on like Red Earth Creek could be included or excluded. Hypothetically, though that does have a lot more of a connection towards Slave Lake and High Prairie. But it's plausible that could happen as well. You could move the boundaries surrounding where Reno is and John Doerr, or pardon me, down towards Falher. Those are also possibilities. But keeping the lion's share of the same population where you need to move boundaries on the edges, to me, seems like that's your task. And I won't pretend to know what that looks like. You guys have many moving parts.
Thank you. Susan?
Thank you for coming out today. I really appreciate the time to be here with us. You missed the introduction here. We got 1,100 submissions since
wow.
the interim report came out. And we have felt a very big pushback against the decision we made to redraw the north. So we are going to look at it, but some of the more positive things that had come out in those submissions was the Indigenous population was kept together within one riding, and some large Indigenous groups wrote in and said they really like the idea of them having one voice in one electoral district. Can you shed some light from your perspective on that?
Sure. I mean, I don't know which groups spoke, and I'm happy to take their position at face value and appreciate that. My position as the local MLA is that fundamentally I have a job to represent the whole province, not just one constituency. I have to look for the common good of every single Albertan. But inevitably, part of my job also is going to be bringing to attention to ministers, making suggestions and debate within legislation that are relevant to our local experience. And I think that independent of whether or not someone has a shared Indigenous background, my experience in communities is that they have stronger associations based on whether or not their kids play in the same sports teams, based on whether or not they shop at the same grocery stores, based on whether or not their parents work in the same mill. Those things matter far, far, far more than any ethnic or racial or demographic connection that you can make. As a local MLA, I care about the welfare of every single one of my constituents, as I do every Albertan, but my constituents are those who send me there. And it is so very hard for me to be concerned with many of these First Nation communities who struggle with a lack of infrastructure, a lack of resources in their communities. It becomes very diffuse as a local MLA. I have to, when I go talk to ministers, when I make speeches in the legislature, I am not choosing between all options on the table. I'm choosing between the best options I have in front of me. And so inevitably with limited resources, I sometimes cannot argue as hard for some projects as I do others. That becomes almost impossible to achieve if my physical geography, because almost all of these services, almost all of them in the north, are physical deficits of services. And so, like I said, it does me no good if I widen a highway in the northern half of my riding, or the southern half of my riding, for example, but that widening of the highway is by drive time closer to Montana than it is to my constituents in the northern half. They just don't care that much about something that far away. And they could be very happy for us as a province that they got that. That doesn't change the fact that my job is about allocation and argument for physical resources. And when you spread it out too large, even those First Nation communities, I think, will be more poorly served if it's about some ethnic identity rather than a geographic, territorial cohesion around a service hub where they prefer those services. That's my argument. And I think in all charity, I want to better serve, for example, all of my communities, including First Nations. And I feel like I can do that better when there's a common project that all the neighboring communities agree with, along with them, because paving 58, for example, 58 East towards Little Red has been a priority of mine for many years, and I think we're making progress on it. That's harder if half of my constituents say, I've never heard of Little Red or 58.
Exactly. Good. Thank you. That was a very good answer.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Martin?
Thank you. Minister Williams, thank you for coming. I wanted to ask you some questions about transportation. Just preface them by saying it's pretty obvious by looking at the map that this piece has been a transportation route for hundreds and hundreds of years, as the legacy we have of that are the Indian nations along the river valley, and including the very large Métis settlement, sort of testament to the fur trade era, where the river was, of course, more heavily traversed than anything in the rest of Alberta, as it came to be. But I want to ask you about modern transportation.
Yes.
And first of all, when you leave the legislature, what route do you take to get to Peace River?
Well, the Peace River in the southern half of the riding.
town office.
Yeah, the town of Peace River. I would head out on 16, then head north on 43, and then head north on 2 through Valley View, and then make my way to Peace River. Depends on where I'm going in the Peace area. It's 4.5 to 5.5 hours from the legislature. Now,
we've heard, and I've traveled Highway 88 myself. I don't like it. And from what we heard
when did you travel
earlier
it?
Summer.
Okay, but it was paved?
No, it was...
Okay, well, it's paved. You'll love it now.
Well, it was good gravel, but I didn't like it. But we heard in our first round of presentations, not least when we were in Peace River, from people who lived in First Nations east of the town of Peace River. And they were saying, oh, Highway 88, it's dreadful, we never use that. We always come into Peace River and then go south, and then cut along the bottom side of Slave Lake and go through
Highway 2
Canuso
through there,
and the town of Slave Lake and so on. And you know, so you really don't have many transportation routes. This is you talk about an infrastructure deficit, and this is an infamous one. And so right through the middle of this proposed footprint is a very dodgy road.
The 686.
Yeah, I take up through.
Peerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through, you know, Red Path, is it?
Red Earth, then
Red
to
Earth.
Peerless, and then over towards Fort Mac.
Bad road.
Yeah.
And lousy in winter, I bet.
I mean, not passable often, yeah,
Okay.
meaningfully.
So not passable is a real fact.
Yeah.
In our deliberations, because of course transportation's and obvious roadways are a significant consideration for this panel. And you don't have one.
Well, I'll say that
not through the middle at any rate.
if I'm in the current boundary, if I'm going to the northern half of my riding, Fort Vermilion, High Level, Crete, I take a different path. I go up 88.
Yeah.
Inside the constituency, it's cohesive. I can take 35 all the way down, or the ice bridge, and it works very well. Going in and out is very choppy, to your point, depends on where you're going on that 88 corridor. Now, it is the aspirations of our government to pave that 686 through Red Earth Peerless, but I don't know what timeline we have. I'm sure Minister Dreeshen can give us more on it. So these things are, you know, we hope to ameliorate, but right now, that is one of the problems that realistically, if this riding were to take place, there'd be a big chunk where I may not even, if I were to be elected there, I may not even stay in constituency for most of it, within the constituency, right? Which is not true right now. Once I'm in the constituency of Peace River, I stay in it physically almost all the time. It's coherent within itself. Now, getting to and from Edmonton depends on where I'm going, and it's very vast, fair enough. But this would have a problem that I would often want to leave and head into what would be Central Peace Notley, if that's what it's called, the one to the south.
I have one subsidiary question, if I might, and that is when you are traveling in your constituency, you're doing it by car or truck, and presumably you do a lot of your office work, so to speak, by wireless cell phone.
Yes.
Right? And do you have adequate cell phone coverage?
Oh, no, but that's a bigger problem that I don't know if you can address. I'd love if you could.
Well, and again, it bears on what
Yeah.
constitutes effective representation.
Yeah.
If your area becomes huger and huger, and your cell phone coverage becomes sparser and sparser,
Yeah.
then we have a problem.
Yeah, I think that is a concern. The drive time between, people ask me, where you been, Dan? I said, I've been between towns, mostly, driving. So just the time consumed. Happily, the folks at the Legislative Assembly office have done what they can to help me around virtual access at times with cell phone boosters, et cetera, in an attempt to fix it. But when I go to a grocery store with my constituency, well, I'll tell you, my wife doesn't send me out to go get milk because every single person knows me. And to them, and I'm humbled by it, I'm their voice, I'm the big deal, right? So there's the cell phone consideration, there's the time consumed in driving within the constituency. For example, I was in the constituency last week. I had 3 days of over 10 hours of driving, which is not uncommon to have. I'm getting to and from and then within the constituency. And so you try and make the most of that time. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love my role. It is just a different sort of representation. And I've worked in political offices representing urban centers. It's very fulfilling work. They have a hard job as well, but it is very different. And the hardest thing is the ability to effectively meet constituents who are territorial. They want to see you. They're face-to-face people. They're concerned about those intimate things around how's the salting working on the 88 connector road or whatever it is. Those are the kinds of concerns that they have. They're really the kind of things that municipal politicians in Edmonton and Calgary rightfully have to deal with around snow clearing after the dump. Those are all provincial responsibilities on these often provincial responsibilities. So it is very earthy. It's a corporal sort of work in rural Alberta that is not the same in urban. I'm not ranking them. I'm just saying that they're different by nature.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, thank you. And I think just maybe through you to your constituents and your colleagues and other folks in the north, we hear the submissions, and they were not just, a significant number, but very thoughtful, well.
Those
put.
are my constituents.
Yeah, and I think, speaking just for myself and not on behalf of any of my fellow commissioners, I'm not convinced we got the borders right, especially in the north. It's an intractable challenge of, okay, well, what gives? Certainly, your input on the specific boundaries today has been really helpful. The letter you wrote with your colleagues is really helpful, that sort of on-the-ground information. So I've just got, if Justice will allow me, I have a couple of questions. Tell me a bit about your staff. And I guess what I asked a previous presenter, would it be at least not a complete fix? If you had even a substantially higher budget, where you could have even more, right? I mean, in terms of like what you're talking about just now, in terms of the scale, the vast geography of what you represent. Do you feel you have enough staff, enough budget to have enough offices, enough people that aren't you, but could maybe bridge a little bit? Would that help?
Yeah, it would for sure. It's something that I've been advocating for when I sat on Member Services Committee. It's a formula that's derived there. I have 2 offices, one in the north, one in the south, which since my predecessor has been normal, Ms. Jabour, and I think that is appreciated by constituents because of the large drive times that exist between. I think that they're used to making the trips, and it happens, but as a matter of effective representation, it's good to be able to meet them in a hub community around where they're from. So I have one staff that is from Grimshaw, works out of Peace River. I have another staff that I'm looking to replace that is from Fort Vermilion area and works out of Lacrete. But that's what it is now. I think that would be the single best use of an increased budget for me. I understand that there are different costs for rental space with real estate in Edmonton and Calgary, for example, that are meaningfully different, but having physical presence there is probably the best value for the taxpayer to fund. Because the vast majority of the things, and you know this well, Mr. Clark, that you deal with as a constituency MLA are not partisan political in nature. They're services, they're getting people access through provincial programming, social support networks, dealing with, especially in rural Alberta, all sorts of environmental considerations surrounding use of land, and land use planning, et cetera. So those are the nitty-gritty, like tangible things that you do in an office, and I think more staff help.
Yeah, we don't have control over that, unfortunately.
No, you don't.
And I know previous commissions have made exactly that recommendation. Maybe we'll ask, pretty pleased that gets addressed. So just the other challenge, the other massive challenge we have in this province, and what we're grappling with as a panel, has been this incredible population growth we've seen in the province. Almost all of that has happened in Calgary and Edmonton. Not 100%, but almost all of it. And when I look at the data for the north, the growth is flat or in some cases actually negative. And so at some point you end up having, it makes it really quite challenging, even with the variances, to kind of balance all that out. So I guess, do you feel like the percentages that existed in 2017 between sort of the north and the big cities, was that an appropriate percentage? Or do you feel like they got it wrong as well?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start with a question that I'll answer as well. I'm just wondering, your data, I just want to understand what you use for the population data. I think I meant to look into it, but I never found out. How do you guys
July 1st, 2024.
July 1, 2024.
Yeah, it's Statistics Canada
Stats
2021,
Yeah.
updated by
municipal censi, et cetera?
Alberta's Treasury Board, Department of OIS.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
and if you look at pages,
I'm sure you had it, and that's why I was asking that.
4,888,723.
Okay, good. So I just want to make sure, because I know that when it comes to Stats Can data, First Nations don't have very high response rates, which myself and many of my northern colleagues do represent. I don't know if that has a more than some negligible statistical difference on it. And then municipal data, for sure, I'm not sure when, but Lacrete is one of the fastest growing communities in the country. It's a hamlet, and I just want to make sure that those sorts of things are considered. But I don't doubt at all, to your point, that we've seen disproportionately higher growth in that Edmonton-Calgary corridor. And I'll stipulate it, agree that they need representation. especially in the large cities. And like I said, I don't want to deprive anyone of their ability to have a voice and a say. As the Minister of Municipal Affairs, with the different hat I wear, we don't have the same stipulation of the 25% and 50% variation. In fact, there's next to no barrier on this beyond the decisions that a local council makes. So there are some wards that are disproportionate, hundreds of times different. Now, sometimes those get out of control, and it's up to the local elected officials to readjust those. But we've yet to put a firm rule on it because there are extraordinary circumstances in this province. I mean, I'll note Mackenzie County is 14% of the landmass of the province and the lion's share of my constituency. And inevitably, that's going to have a different sort of solution than 40 Mile or heck Red Deer. And there needs to be a certain ability to, in extreme outliers, find an Aristotelian mean. We cannot have one rule across. And I think that there needs to be those variations put in place. Inevitably, I mean, many of my northern colleagues would like to see us replace a new constituency into the north. And I understand the challenges of what that would be. But to remove another constituency from the north, I think is very challenging because the economic lifeblood and so much of our history is centered around the north, especially when you look at people that have disproportionately not had the same influence in society. That's true economically, it's true historically. We talk about First Nation communities as well. And I think that the best thing you can do for making sure that this bargain of Alberta continues to exist is use your judgment, allow nuance where it's needed, stick to a rule as best you can. But if we continue to remove one northern riding every single cycle, then we got 8 cycles before there's one riding in the north. And inevitably, I mean, our great Alberta advantage is based on the territory itself. It's based on the resources that come out of our communities. I think there has to be some consideration for how that works politically long-term as an agreement between the north and the south, between big cities and rural communities. There needs to be an accommodation. That's why the 25% variation and the 50% exemptions need to be employed, I'd say very liberally.
I appreciate it, and I'll just end by saying this. I absolutely agree, and we talked about this a lot. And how do we accommodate? Just for reference sake, the 7 northern constituencies on average in this report are 10% under the average, which is actually better than 2017. It was 8.4 in 2017. That's not everything, and it doesn't change the geography. I tell my family in the UK that the northwest corner of Alberta is larger than the country of Belgium, and it has 40,000 people in it. Yeah. That blows their mind. Yeah. So having said that, it's not just a data spreadsheet exercise, it's a very real...
I take your point that you continue to see higher growth, and that doesn't even, flatlining population in Alberta, in the north, pardon me, will continue to present challenges. You see disproportionate growth in the south. I think that what's happening, obviously we tried to create an independent commission for the purpose of trying to create a nonpartisan, and the predecessor, the presenter went before me, used the term gerrymandering. Of course we don't want to see that. That is political interference in what should be an above board process. But there is a political accommodation that all sides are making all the time. Like it or not, this is a politically accountable process that will be voted on the legislature. And so if in the end we don't calibrate that right over time, I'm not saying this commission, but I'm saying over decades, disproportionately the North will feel isolated and alienated. And that, I think, is not a recipe for MLAs like me to say, I believe in the common interest of a whole province. Inevitably, there will be a politics of trying to aggravate territorially a division between North and South. And that, I think, is to Alberta's detriment. So if anything, I truly think that getting the calibration right now and tapping brakes before we go too hard on a population alone consideration and really making sure that the North in particular, but all rural Alberta, feels like they have a legitimate and fair seat at the table for what they contribute in all aspects of Alberta's public life, I think that will be a better recipe for cohesion as a province than if we allow ourselves to become statisticians. And I know that's not what you're doing, but I just really emphasize that those variations allow you that flexibility, allow you to do what municipal counties do every single year when they decide how to realign their boards in a really nuanced, localized way. This is that only tool you have.
Mr. Williams, I've got several questions
Okay,
and
I'll
comments.
keep my answers shorter then.
Did I understand you correctly to say that some of your colleagues are saying that maybe we should add one more riding rather than take
Oh,
one
I'm
away?
certain somewhere around the government
If that was,
cloakroom.
if that
it's
was
been
the
mentioned.
case, then maybe we should have had more than 89 ridings to play with. I just make that comment.
Well,
okay?
I'll take that back. It's very charitable of you to put it that way. Very charitable to put it that way. Duly noted.
Okay, just a couple of just factual questions. Are you saying on average it takes you 5 hours from the ledge to get home to?
No, it takes me about 7.5 hours to get home because I live in Lacrete.
Okay, sorry, so 5 hours to get to Peace River?
Yeah.
And how far is Lacrete from Peace River?
Well, I would take a different route. As I
Right.
said, 2 different routes. I would go up 88 coming out of Edmonton or Calgary, anywhere in southern Alberta, and that's about 7 hours of just pure drive time. And then between the 2 communities, I'd say sort of the Lacrete, Fort Vermilion area down to like the Peace River area. If the ice bridge is operational, then it's a simple 3-hour drive. But if there's no ice bridge in, or if the ferry's not running, then I'm going around, and we're going to talk 4.5 hours. This is not an episode of ice road truckers on History Channel. This is the day-to-day in our constituency.
Okay. This is a naive, stupid question.
No, it's
Why don't you fly?
Well, that same committee that Mr. Clark and I know well, Member Services, has many limitations surrounding. I'm allowed to fly from 2 points within my constituency if there's no other means of access, and there are only 3 or 4 northern constituencies that have this variation, and I can charter a flight. So for example, when I go to another one of my communities that is, because it's fly in, fly out for much of the year when the ice bridge isn't in, a second ice bridge, sorry, this one's over by Fox Lake. Then I can fly to that. I have once or twice before, but by and large, flying leaves vehicles stranded at random municipal small airports. There are not scheduled flights for the vast majority of this, so chartering is not allowed according to the rules, and then I end up in the middle of somewhere without a vehicle of my own, and I'm probably not going back to that airport afterwards. I'm probably going to another community, so we just drive. We're all used to it. That's what we do.
Okay. Comparatively, and by the way, since you're a bit of a history guy, but I sense, the 1991 legislative committee that dealt with electoral boundaries did a fairly extensive study of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then came up with several recommendations. And that was the basis for some of the Court of Appeal references in the early 90s. Looking at Saskatchewan, and I wish I had come prepared with the longitude or parallel, it's my understanding that northern Saskatchewan is just very simply divided into 2 electoral districts. And I want to say it's about what we're looking at on the map right now. They take a third of the province and just say, okay, there's North Saskatchewan West and North Saskatchewan East. Have you looked, or have you thought of a model like that?
I don't know Saskatchewan well. My understanding is that the Canadian Shield does continue up into northern Saskatchewan. There are fewer road transportation networks, and there's not the same river basin that would have historically built it. So I think they're largely fly in, fly out with a couple of connecting roads that don't have a long history with river basins. I'm not going to speak to that in detail, but that's my, grade 4 memory of the geography of northern Canada. So my assumption is, we have effectively, the plains continue up all the way up into Bistiou, in the lowlands. So it's just a different geography. But I'll defer to someone who knows better.
Okay, one more question, and I'm not doubting your suggestion at the beginning, but can you just confirm that what you said, that the bottom boundary of Mackenzie is closer to the U.S. border than the northern boundary?
By drive time, my understanding is that Calling Lake down to the U.S. border is faster than going from Calling Lake up to Zama City or NWT. Yeah, I'd have to check my exact calculations again, but you're into a ballpark where if it's a gray zone and might depend on the weather, then yeah, it's a massive, and the transportation network isn't obvious all the way through once you get up to that far corner. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, and please stay if you are able to hear the other presentations, and maybe there can be
I'll stay as long as I can,
conversation.
but
And,
I'm just, when I'm not here, I'm watching online feverishly. Did you guys have this streamed, or did I make that up? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm watching it nonstop, guys.
Yeah, and I can comment that Minister Williams, you're the first person that has quoted Roger Scruton.
Wow, the fact you know what Roger Scruton is makes my heart sing.
And
Justice.
Aristotle.
I did invoke Aristotle and his mean, as everyone should in politics on a daily
Okay.
basis.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question about Saskatchewan.
Okay. Okay, we'll proceed to Mr. Williams' colleague from the legislature, Ms. Tajada. Lizette.
Yes, that's right. Tahada.
Welcome. Have a seat.
Tahada, actually.
Tahada, have a seat
Thank
and make yourself comfortable.
Sure.
And I recall very clearly your presentation last time.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
The,
Did you get my name wrong that one time? Oh,
Well, it was your writing that, the way you described your writing, and I always thought that maybe you should be the Minister of Transportation because of the nature of your writing.
there's a lot of driving that happens in Calgary Klein. Yeah, I'm just
Okay,
gonna get
yeah.
my notes together here.
Sure.
And looking at all of the maps. These are great. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. Lizette Tahada here, MLA for Calgary Klein. Very, very pleased to be back here and wishing you all a happy new year, hoping everyone got a good rest. And just really thankful for all of the work that's been done through the commission, for the opportunities that Albertans have been given to give their feedback, for your careful consideration of the submissions, and for this detailed and well-reasoned report and recommendations. I can only imagine the many hours of work and deliberation, and I'm grateful for the engagement and the communication on all of your parts with Albertans in service to our democracy and to ensure effective representation. And so just in referencing the last time we spoke, I know that there was a lot of discussion there about what effective and fair representation looks like, especially in my case as it relates to municipalities and being an MLA within a municipality, and how important it was to keep communities together, how the boundaries might also impact advocacy efforts around services, infrastructure access as well. And we discussed the importance of keeping municipalities intact. I spoke to a little bit about the role that I fill as not only as a local MLA, but as Shadow Minister for Immigration and Multiculturalism, and the idea of how folks access the services that also help them integrate. And so I can share that when the report was released, I opened it with great anticipation. I felt like it was
And
back
did you
to
read the
school.
first 60 pages before you got to your description?
Well, before, maybe
Yeah.
not,
Oh.
but I did maybe like a little bit of selective reading, but I felt like I was digging into it like a kid in school, and thoroughly enjoyed how I could see that the conversations and the feedback of Albertans had informed the overall map. And so I got to read some of the submissions as well. And of course, looked at mine with great interest, and grateful to have been able to witness some of what Mr. Williams was talking about as well, and just learning about how all of these boundary changes can impact different ridings in different ways. When I look at the map as it is presented to us through this report, it seems to meet the spirit of a lot of the submissions that I was able to read, and also the feedback that I received from constituents. So as it relates to Calgary Klein, the changes are significant. It seems that that I might, that any MLA for Calgary Klein, if we're looking into the future, might not get to boast about representing 3 quadrants in the city of Calgary should these changes come into effect. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that that it's been an absolute honor to represent all of my constituents and all of their communities. I've built a lot of meaningful relationships with residents in all of the communities and have delighted in the work that they do, the community organizations, the services that are offered there. I have the Center for Newcomers currently, as well as places like Cornerstone Youth, and lots of the services that people access all over Calgary are focused in Calgary-Klein, and also congratulations for having both hearings in the constituency of Calgary-Klein. So the last ones we did, and these ones. So I get maybe a little bit of bragging rights. I know it had nothing to do with that. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, I did feel a twinge of sadness at the idea that the riding of Calgary-Klein would no longer include the wonderful communities of Mayland Heights and Albert Park, Radisson. The engagement that I see with our office, between neighbors, is truly an inspiration. Both communities have strong community relationships. They help each other. They're involved in a lot of advocacy. They're very, very active, and I've heard from them on everything from housing to public safety. Now, because we are in the riding of Calgary-Klein within the city of Calgary, a lot of those issues extend, regardless of how the boundaries are moving. So I'll say that an argument still could be made for keeping Mayland Heights in the constituency of Calgary-Klein. I see that when I'm looking at the report and the numbers that are proposed, we're looking at 49,666 that would be represented in the new boundaries, and the community of Mayland Heights has roughly about 5,000. We did talk about keeping like communities together, and the Community Association of Crossroads represents both Vista Heights, which is on the other side of the Trans-Canada, and Mayland community. So an argument could be made that way. However, I am also representing one of the communities in Triwood, and so I'm used to sharing, as I share one community association with my colleague, Dr. Luann Metz. Should these changes actually be confirmed, and of course, if I'm fortunate enough to represent Calgary-Klein in the next election, I would be pleased to work collaboratively should additional representation happen, and can promise that I'll still visit. So I'll add that the rapid population growth that we've seen in recent years, I know that this boundary reflects the numbers for 2024. We saw the biggest spike in population in 2023. It's still growing. I also have the community of Midfield Heights, which used to be a mobile home park, and so that land is slated for mixed model growth and an increase in housing. So I can see how these boundaries still make sense within that context. In terms of the addition of Mount Pleasant, that was also a surprise, but a very reasonable choice and very welcome. And I see that the rationale given was that this community bears a lot of similarity to the neighboring communities of the riding as a whole. It neighbors on Tuxedo, Winston Heights, which is where the Midfield area is. Those are all on 16th, and also Highland Park. So not only is that accurate that they access similar services, but Calgary-Klein currently already includes about a 2-block swath of Mount Pleasant. So having that as an additional community to Calgary-Klein makes a lot of sense. And I think in general, I think that this particular boundary is in line with keeping communities together. If I think about Mayland Heights, Albert Park, and Radisson moving into confluence, that also makes a lot of sense.
Okay, your presentation is ideally suited for being up at the map and showing us some things.
Okay, sorry.
So if you,
Yeah.
no,
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to maybe go up there, just a bit of a
Sure.
recap.
Absolutely.
And especially as it relates to Mayland Heights. Show us where that is,
And Aaron will get you a microphone so that we can hear you and record you in that regard. So keep going and repeat yourself if you wish by directing us to these areas.
So when we were talking about the loss of some of the communities that are reflected in this change, two of the communities that I currently represent would move into confluence. And that's the new riding that's been added to Calgary.
So that's south of you then, yeah.
And so this is 16th Avenue. So on this side, we have Vista Heights. And on this side, we have Mayland. And then further east, I believe, is Albert Park and Radisson, which is also bordering on Forest Lawn, which I think is currently part of Calgary East. Okay. And so when I'm talking about the representation of Vista Heights and Mayland Heights, and how at least the community association is in Mayland. And so, yeah, while I would be sad to lose those, I'm used to also sharing community associations. I think more representation is better, especially in our cities. And we've seen a lot of growth in the Northeast. So I have Northeast, Southeast, I have Northwest. So this is the Northwest. We have Nose Hill up here. And we're seeing a lot more of that concentrated growth in the Northeast. It would be in other ridings like Calgary Northeast, Calgary Falcon Ridge. This dividing line here, I'm kicking things, of 36th Street is the C-train line, right? So the boundary doesn't change there, and that's great. We still have lots of access. I still have lots of thoroughfares, so that's great. And then I would say that, you know, I was looking at the history of the riding, and the boundary redraw actually more closely reflects a previous version of Calgary-Klein, right? And I believe Mount Pleasant might have been part of Calgary-Klein previously. I know Winston Heights still was. And so basically the biggest change that I saw was the removal of a couple of the communities into confluence, but we also see an extension where this 2nd Street was the dividing line. It is now 10th Street and including all of Mount Pleasant. And so because I already have a part of, because I already represent part of Mount Pleasant, it makes a lot of sense to include Mount Pleasant. And we still see, because it's that central northwest, northeast area, I think that's where we're going to see the concentration of growth in population. So it still makes sense. Looking at the boundary map, it's a fair map. And I would say that given the growth in some of the other ridings, Calgary Buller McCall, Calgary Northeast, Calgary Falcon Ridge, I can't remember exactly where the numbers were at, and I know that we don't have parity across ridings, but with the large population growth there, I think Calgary actually could stand to have another constituency added to Calgary. So I will say that. I think that's all I have to do with the map right now. So I will go back to my seat.
Okay, could you point out for me, or
sure.
for us,
Sure.
you mentioned a park, a mobile home park. What
Right.
is that?
So-
Which is, and describe that again. Is that being built up with apartments or what? What's happening there?
So it looks like mixed model housing will go there. And so to point out where exactly that would be, so we have 16th Avenue and the Trans-Canada here. We have the Deerfoot here, and Midfield Park is right here.
Okay.
So the mobile home park was actually removed many years ago, and there's been lots of plans for development, and we're starting to see a little bit more movement there. From the plans that I've seen, it looks like mixed model housing, so we'll have some apartments, we'll have some townhomes. There's a mix, and there's already the infrastructure of the larger Winston Heights community. So it makes a lot of sense. We're going to see growth there. We're going to see growth just on this side of 36th Street as well, by the C-train. I've already seen conversions of industrial to residential. And we've seen conversions even of places like hotels as you get closer to the airport on Barlow. I represent a senior's home, which was converted from hotel previously. right? And so we're seeing a lot of those conversions happening, I would say, all over the city. And I know that I hear from lots of constituents that transportation is a big concern, especially where we're seeing conversions where the bus routes don't exist yet, right? So usually you hear about that in the more suburban areas as we sort of increase our sprawl, but we're seeing real issues with that right now, especially with aging populations, right? Being able to access transit. I know that's a municipal issue, but
Okay.
yeah. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for me while I'm up here?
No, I think you can come down and, or come back down and just, well, I make use of the time. You say that Malin Heights is only about 5,000 people, so you could take that back without, and just get up to the average then, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
And you
very
want it
possible.
back. You want it back.
I mean,
Politicians don't want to give up their
well, I mean,
great
and
people they
I
represent.
think, I know my colleague, if he's still here, I have my other colleague, Court here. Of course, right, you develop those relationships with your community associations. And when I'm at Crossroads, I don't differentiate between who's in Vista and who's in Malin Heights. I would love that.
Okay.
And for reasons that, you know, that it's already represented, it's represented by the same community association, and it makes sense if you're talking about just like the services, the roads, everything that people access from those two neighborhoods. They're very interconnected. But it also makes a lot of sense, the changes that are happening right now. And I haven't done a count yet on how big Mount Pleasant is. I know that it's quite dense. I'm fortunate enough to have worked for an MLA before becoming worked for an MLA before becoming an MLA, and I helped represent exactly that area, so Mount Pleasant, through the work that I did with the MLA for Calgary Mountain View. And it makes sense. So I've gotten to know both of those communities. That makes a lot of sense to have those included in the boundaries of Klein.
Okay, I actually just looked at my watch. I've been lousy at keeping time. I've been
I was gonna
dialoguing
say.
with you. Mr. Evans, I'll throw open for
But I learned a
questions.
lot from the last presentation, too.
Mr. Evans, any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I was just waiting for voter turnout, but go ahead, Susan.
We did hear about Malin Heights and the write-ins after the interim report came out, so I'm glad you addressed that. That is something I think we'll have a further conversation on.
Okay.
And so moving Malin Heights doesn't tie us to Albert Park, Radisson. There's not a connection there. It's more the other way into Vista.
Right.
Yes,
It's more connected with Vista.
yeah.
Now, Albert Park and Radisson, the commonality that they would have then with Malin Heights is Memorial as the dividing line as well, and access to the C-train line, because the C-train line goes from 36th
Yeah,
and then switches into Memorial, right? So they all
Yeah.
access the same transportation.
I can't see taking both or considering both based on where you're sitting in the big picture. But if there was
That's true.
one, it would be Mayland.
Right.
Thank you.
That makes
Okay.
the most sense, I think.
Dr. Martin?
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation and its level of detail. It's always fun.
Yeah.
And I want to quote you,
Okay,
your own characterization of your writing when we saw you in the spring.
okay.
Well, my crappy notes. This is a very highly diverse district. We have residential all the way through to industrial zones. We have lots of major road arteries. We have LRT. We have bus lines. There's lots of new residential units throughout. Also, we have affordable housing in the eastern light industrial areas. And those are the things I picked out from your characterization.
Right.
Has anything at all changed about that characterization with the new interim story? I posit that
I don't think
the
so.
same story would be told, right?
Yeah.
And so the difference is about, well, it's a loss of community of people you know and love, but it's about population
It is.
rather than anything that is a significant characterization
Right.
of the district.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think anything has changed in that respect.
Yeah.
And, yeah, happy to represent all of those communities, but that was a little bit of a sentimental addition. Yeah.
It's amazing how sentimental MLAs are. I've noticed that.
It is, and if I'll be quick, but Malin Heights, specifically the young people in Malin Heights are very, very community-minded and active. A lot of the cultural communities gather in Malin Heights at Crossroads Community Association, and some of them are classmates of my kids. So they attend the same schools, and we know that, we need more. Yeah, no, they're great communities, but I think if we're looking at the riding of confluence that's been added to Calgary, those communities being together still make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I will just say thank you for being here, and our GIS magic tells me that Malin Heights is 6,600.
Oh, is it?
Okay.
According to what we have.
But I think she still wants them.
It's clear that you would be happy to have them back if we were to move them back in, so just.
And at the same time, though, having that additional riding and having those communities together makes a lot of sense too. And like I said, I already share a community association with another MLA, and I feel like more representation is better with all of the population growth that we've seen. We hear about it in the news all the time. I think it's great to have more representation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Haddad.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Thanks so much. Have a great
Please stay if you can, because I
will.
think we might have time for dialogue. We're running way behind time,
Okay.
I noticed.
Get out of here.
Pardon? Okay, we are now supposed to be at 2:30, I think. So readjust your clocks, everyone. It's 2:30. Ms. Angela Albers, are you present? Good afternoon. Have a seat and make yourself comfortable.
And Aaron does have a copy of the presentation, all the materials, but if you would like a hard copy, I've brought them. I cut a few trees down, so if you'd like them, then that's possible.
Sure, give them to us before you
Okay.
leave, or now, yeah, we don't want to waste,
While Aaron's getting stuff ready anyways.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's good enough. Yeah, you bet. Okay. Well, good afternoon, Commission members. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Angela Albers, and I'm the Reeve of Mountain View County. This is my fourth term as an elected official and my fifth year as Reeve of the county. I'm here today to address two matters. First, on behalf of my council and the residents of Mountain View County, and secondly, on behalf of rural Alberta more broadly. So Mountain View County is currently in two electoral divisions, Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House, Sundre, and the old Didsbury Three Hills. This representation has worked extremely well and has served our community fairly and effectively. The current provincial boundaries reflect the needs of our residents and align with the type of representation our county requires. Importantly, the current provincial boundaries also align with our municipal governance structure, which recognizes significant differences between the eastern and western sides of the county. At the municipal level, we have 4 elected officials representing the west and 3 representing the east, and I've provided a map of our electoral boundaries at the municipal level. This distinction is intentional and necessary due to fundamental differences across the county. These differences include agriculture. The eastern portion of the county is primarily focused on cropping and confined feeding operations, while the western portion specializes in livestock and forage production. Crown land and recreation. Crown land and associated recreational activities occur exclusively in the western portion of the county. Emergency response. Fire departments in Sundre, Water Valley, and Cremona require very different training than those in Olds, Didsbury, and Carstairs. Western departments must be equipped for forest fire response and backcountry and river rescue. Renewable energy development. Provincial focus on renewable energy is most likely to occur in the eastern portions of the county where open prairie landscapes are more suitable. This continues to be a contentious issue for rural Alberta. Infrastructure and economic development. The western portion of the county relies on the Highway 22 corridor, including communities such as James River, Bearberry, Water Valley, Sundre, Cremona, and stretching out to Rocky Mountain House. The eastern portion relies on the QE2 corridor, including Carstairs, Didsbury, and Olds. Water and wastewater services. Eastern communities such as Olds, Didsbury, and Carstairs have access to regional water and wastewater systems. In contrast, western communities, including Cremona, Sundre, and areas north to Rocky Mountain House, rely on standalone infrastructure such as lagoons, reservoirs, and local treatment facilities. Forestry. A western-aligned electoral division preserves this cohesive forestry community of interest and supports effective representation by aligning boundaries with forest management areas. While we understand the Commission's rationale for proposing a single riding encompassing all of Mountain View County, as outlined on page 71 of your draft report with the creation of the Mountain View Knee-Hill riding, we believe there is far too much diversity across the county to be adequately represented by one MLA. Representation should reflect common interests and shared realities, not solely municipal boundaries or population counts. We believe we've clearly demonstrated why the existing east-west division of ridings is both logical and necessary. Although the Commission has noted agriculture as a dominant industry in the proposed Lacombe Rocky Mountain House riding as outlined on page 67 of your draft report, we respectfully submit that the type of agriculture matters. There is meaningful distinction between cropping-based systems and livestock and forage-based operations, and these differences drive policy priorities and representation needs. We also ask the Commission to give significant weight to the following factors: economic development and access to major transportation corridors, being the Highway 22 corridor and the QE2 corridor; water and wastewater infrastructure, particularly the differing needs of communities accessing regional systems versus those on standalone systems; access to Crown land and recreation, which represents both opportunities and challenges unique to our western side of the county; emergency services, including wildfire response and the extensive need for municipal and provincial collaboration within the forest protection areas; and finally, the forest industry. This needs aligned municipal and provincial advocacy. Mountain View County respectfully requests that the Commission revisit the proposed boundary alignment and, based on the information provided, revert to the current structure of representation that our ratepayers deserve, naturally being a more westernly alignment and a more easternly alignment. I know that I'm close to the end of my time. However, I would be remiss in not taking the opportunity to address the reduction of rural ridings in Alberta. The reduction in rural ridings proposed in the draft report reflects a dynamic that Canadians already are familiar with at the federal level. Just as population concentrations in Eastern Canada has long resulted in Western Canada having a diminished voice at Parliament, population growth within our urban centres is now reducing the relative voice of rural Albertans in our own legislature. Rural regions are geographically large, sorry, I'm lost my place now.
Economically significant.
While representation by population is important, it cannot be the sole measure of fairness. Rural regions are geographically large, economically significant, and face complex responsibilities related to agriculture, resource management, emergency services, and infrastructure. Fewer rural MLAs representing larger and more diverse areas risk undermining the principle of effective representation, which requires the geography, community interest and regional interests and regional realities be meaningfully reflected at the table where the decisions are made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Albers.
Chair.
Mr. Clark, any questions or
Thank you.
comments?
Yeah, you've really,
Clark.
I appreciate your presentation, and I also appreciate you sharing the written presentation with us. So we've got that. And yeah, I mean, I think you've really hit on one of the big challenges, and if you've been kind of listening to some of the previous presenters, we really struggle with the significant population growth that we've seen, the massive influx, and it's all, not exclusively, almost all of it in Calgary, Edmonton. It doesn't mean that Mountain View County hasn't grown at all relative to the big cities and the surrounding areas. It hasn't grown as quickly, so it makes for a challenging challenging exercise. What I'm curious about is you've mentioned Clearwater County, the pieces of Clearwater County that are sort of part of this. Can you tell me about the sort of connection or not with Clearwater County?
Yeah, there's a large connection with Clearwater County. So things like the forest management programs, how we look at tourism on the West Country. Mountain View County works with Clearwater County on their Sasquatch program, which is really trying to bring more awareness of how to use the West Country in a more sustainable and effective way. We have regional mutual aid agreements with Clearwater County on fire services. And the other big one that I know I've mentioned is the forestry industry. So probably twice an election cycle, we try to get together with Clearwater County. We have joint meetings on, they have the big LVF plant, we have West Fraser Mills and Sundry. So the sharings of how we can best lobby on behalf of our forestry. We did this when it came to the mountain pine beetle. When we had the outbreaks, we worked very, very closely with Clearwater County to lobby on behalf of the forest industry through our rural municipalities of Alberta and through our MLAs. So it's been a great collaboration with Clearwater County.
Did you say that was the Sasquatch program?
It's called the Sasquatch program, yes. Yes.
Is that named after the actual Sasquatch?
It is, and they've got a lovely logo. So, and they've done great work in trying to raise awareness for the West Country and keep it pristine.
Great. Beautiful, beautiful program. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Martin?
Thank you, and thank you.
Dr. Martin.
And thanks for the handout, because lots to chew on there. But the key for me is your distinction on many different themes between the east side and the west side of your county, and why that's of significance to us because of the way our interim map was presented. So again, you and your colleagues do see a very clear distinction economically as much as culturally between the east and west side. And it's key to the different types of agricultural production and resource management issues that east and west severally have to look after, and they're very distinct. And is that something that's baked into the policy of the council? How do you, I mean, when you're, you're going to have several of your councillors from the west side and several from the east, and you from the west as well, but how do you prioritize issues?
So I guess in how it would impact provincially and how we lobby provincially, things like the issues right now with canola, for instance, that very, very much impacts the eastern side of the county. And so we're very thankful that we can have an MLA who's very focused on the canola production. It doesn't impact the west as much, and so it gives us an opportunity for our MLA who's very focused on that type of agriculture to look for that, whereas you know, when things like wildfire seasons come to fruition, unfortunately, every year, we're focused more with our MLA in the Rimby Rocky Mountain House Sundry. A mouthful, I'm sorry.
No,
we're focused on
Our predecessors
that.
stuck that label on.
And things like when the mountain pine beetle comes through and impacts our forest industry, then we can work directly with that MLA, where the other MLA now is focused on issues like canola and export.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Albers, you
Chair.
are heading up a very interesting county.
We are very, very lucky.
And if I said to you, you are going against the grain of most other municipalities, what would you say to that?
Probably not unusual, but we think we do have a very strong case for why we're bringing this forward. We're not bringing this forward for the sake of being difficult. When the federal riding
That's not what I meant.
when the federal riding came through and we went from being represented by 2 MPs to 3 MPs, we thought that was going to be a complication, but realized that it was a huge opportunity. The more voices you have representing your communities, the more opportunities you have for access to ministries, the more time you have as focused items. And so, again, I appreciate very much what the commission is trying to do, and that you may see one MLA as a positive. However, we believe that we're so diverse, and there's so many issues coming up, and they continue to come up. Renewable energies is a very large one for rural municipalities. It will be very focused on the eastern side of the county, not so much on the western side. And so having those 2 MLAs that we're able to give those key differences in those issues to is extremely important for Mountain View County.
Okay, thank you. Susan?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It was most interesting.
Susan?
Am I correct to understand that the eastern edges that are now new to your electoral district, Trochu and Three Hills, that would you suggest that they fit in well with those that are bordering on Highway 2? Like in terms of agriculture?
Yes, very much. We do have a very large distinction between the QE2 East and the 22 West.
Right.
And then we have kind of the gray zone, and kind of it fits all between the 22 and the QE2 corridor.
Right, right. And I see the same thing occurring, like when the map was redrawn and it took more to the north, towards the North Saskatchewan, there weren't any large municipalities or towns in there. We felt that it was easy, it might be easier to be absorbed in there. What's your thoughts? I know you're not, it's new to this, but is that acceptable?
To move more east.
We're talking west now, because now you go all the way, before you stopped at Sundre, and now you move farther north, and taking in the North Saskatchewan. Is that not new? That far?
I thought it was condensed west to west.
Okay.
Oh, I see. I see. You're going. That's the no.
Clearwater County.
Clearwater County.
Yeah, we took in more of Clearwater County into that riding.
Yeah, and I think that taking more of Clearwater County into the riding, I think it fits very well with the whole area between sort of Clearwater County and Water Valley. That whole area there is very distinctive. I think that would fit very, very well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Mr. Evans?
What kind of working relationship does your county have with the city of Red Deer?
We have very little to do with the city of Red Deer as Mountain View County. We are part of a wastewater commission that feeds wastewater into the city of Red Deer, but Mountain View County is a very small portion of that because we don't actually have any lines. We just have essentially a dump into the, so we have very little to do with the city.
Is there any talks of, are you in any discussions with respect to annexations or anything like that?
No, we went through a big annexation probably 8 to 10 years ago with our towns, our current towns, mainly Olds, Didsbury, Carstairs, and Sundre, and they haven't yet reached the potential of the growth that was in those annexations. And to Mr. Clark's point, I understand that the urban growth is great. The concern that rurals have is the more focus and the more representation we have in the urban centers, the more we're going to stagnate the growth in the rural opportunities. We need to find a way as a province to really generate some of that growth in the rural, and the less representation we have, the more the growth will even slow down.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and again, thank you for your written presentation. As you know, we are dealing with mountains of information here, and this is helpful and interesting perspective. And I won't drive up Highway 2 between Calgary and Edmonton without thinking of this presentation.
Well, and please come visit us. Come visit us in the West Country. It is something beautiful to be seen if you haven't already been there.
I haven't been to the Trochu Museum yet.
The Gopher Museum,
yeah.
you've got to go, or to Torrington, yeah.
Our UK relatives, it's an absolutely, it's a big part of the tour.
Okay, thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
We are now at break time, or well past break time, but Mr. Ellingson is here. I'm not sure other presenters are here. Okay.
Thank you so much, yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, thank you. And if we don't change the boundaries, maybe we just need an MLA that knows the county well. Break or okay, 5 minutes only. Okay, 5 minutes only. Thank you. Okay.
Make yourself, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
To order, I just looked at the time and we have a very limited opportunity to hear at least 4 presenters. If we can reconvene, and Mr. Ellingson, Court Ellingson, MLA for Calgary, Foothills Now as it's named.
Currently named Calgary Foothills.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
You have obviously read my letter.
All the
Yes, yes. But no, it's a very helpful letter, by the way, and please, I think we're going to be a little bit more strict with the time limits now, because we've got bleed into the evening, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. Mr. Ellington, please proceed.
Thank you. I will not exceed my 6 minutes. I'm used to putting a timer so that when I'm in the House, I know that I'm getting close to the end of my speech. So first of all, I wanted to really thank the panel for the work that you have already done. I wholeheartedly recognize just the volume of data that you guys are going through, qualitative data and quantitative data. I know that in the first round you had a ton of letters and presentations, and that you incorporated all of that into your work. And I noted in the second round now, you're getting another large volume of data, and that you're going to do your very best to incorporate that into your work as well. And I just wanted to say I want to honor that. It is a lot of work, and I think you guys are really taking that on. I really appreciate that. I wanted to thank you in your initial round of work for acknowledging the population growth on Calgary's northern edge and northeastern edge. That obviously factored into the first kind of draft proposal that you sent us, in noting kind of like the changes that you had proposed were clearly taking into account that very high level of population growth on the north and in the northeast. And as part of that, I also wanted to acknowledge that with what is currently named Calgary Foothills, that it is proposed to remain an urban riding. And I do think that that's important. I think I talked about in the first budget submission, I talked about the diversity of budget submission. In the first commission, boundary commission submission, I talked about the diverse nature of what is Calgary Foothills. And I think it is important that it remains an urban riding, because I think that you will see like there are significant demographic differences between the communities of Calgary foothills and the rural communities that are north of Calgary. And so in Calgary foothills, those suburban communities are very ethno-culturally diverse. And I think that you'll find that if you go north of the city into the rural area, you'll find very different demographics, and you'll find very different approaches to what is important and the work that they're trying to do and what they would expect from representation from their MLA. And so I wanted to recognize that. To me, that's important, that it did stay urban, and that draft proposal noted that it would stay urban. I also wanted to talk just very briefly about like the attachment to the constituency. You've heard that from a lot of MLAs. I will say it's interesting for me because I only moved to the constituency 4 months in advance of the election in May of 2023. And so the last 3 years has been a real growth and opportunity for me to come to know the neighborhoods and the constituency, the relationships between different parts of the constituency, where they go to gather, how they come together and gather. And so I wanted to use that as a little bit to talk about, for a moment, about that proposed name change that I threw out there. And wanted to say just one of the things that I've had the real honor of spending a lot of time with the communities of Kincora, Sherwood, Nolan Hill, and Sage Hill, as they work together in addressing the recreational needs of the communities of Northern Calgary. And so they're all working together on a combined proposal to build something called Simons Valley Park, which would be physically located in Kincora, but it's a collaborative effort of 4 different communities, and it would be absolutely accessed by the neighborhoods of those Simons Valley communities. And now the newer kind of Simons Valley communities that are coming along, like Glacier Ridge, would all be kind of working together for that park, which would benefit all of them. I also wanted to talk a little bit about like the gathering points, and there's one really important gathering place. I'll talk a little bit about, you know, the potential of us losing Arbor Lake and how much that means to us that we would be losing Arbor Lake. But Simons Valley United Church is a critical gathering point culturally, for faith groups, for just different communities of where they come together and are using Simons Valley United Church. And where one of them is that the Al-Makah Islamic Society also has a prayer group that prays on Fridays at Simons Valley United Church. And so that place is a gathering place for all of those communities coming together at Simons Valley. So it's a Christian building, but it's a place of gathering for both Christians and for Muslims. And that's just kind of representative of how those communities in Calgary foothills are coming together. Yeah, so I see that I'm at 5 minutes and 40 seconds. I'm going to throw in one thing that I didn't put in my letter and I didn't talk about in the first round, and that is that while the draft change would put Evanston together, because Calgary foothills currently represents a sliver of Evanston, but maybe there's an opportunity here for the new map to keep Citadel together. We have Citadel Green and Citadel Grove are east of Nose Hill Drive. But that little sliver of Citadel, their membership gives them access to the Citadel Community Association. They get their news, the community news comes in the Citadel community newsletter, not the Hamptons community newsletter. So if, for example, as an MLA, the MLA representing that little sliver of Citadel, if you were representing Hamptons, but you also had that little sliver of Citadel because it's west of Nose Hill Drive, you're going to pay to put your stuff into the Citadel newspaper. So you're incurring that just to reach those few hundred people, you have to go through the Citadel Community Association and the Citadel newsletter. So it may be of interest, like it's a matter of a few hundred people, but it might make sense to keep it with foothills instead of proposed Beddington, if that makes sense. And so I've gone over my 6 minutes. I'm going to stop.
Can you go right up there and tell us where Citadel Green and Citadel Grove are? And as you're there, I'll open it up for questions as well.
Sure.
So just point to where you think, where they are.
Oh, it's actually, I guess it's Sarcee that I'm talking about because Nosa was down here.
Oh, good.
So, so Sarcee is what I'm talking about. Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay.
It's this little piece off of Sarcee Trail.
Okay,
Just
good.
east of Sarcee Trail.
Good.
And it's got no physical road connection to the Hamptons.
Okay, good, thank you. Questions,
Sorry about
Mr.
that.
Clark?
That's my fault.
No, I found it on our maps here, and I see it, and we'll make a note of
Okay,
it.
thank you.
So it's just Citadel you're looking for?
One
To
little
bring
I
town.
mean, I went over time, so I didn't go into my argument about how, as I said in the first round with Arbor Lake, we have only 2 community associations with halls where we can go and like book that hall and use it as a place of gathering. Arbor Lake is one of them. So by losing Arbor Lake, we lose one of our critical meeting places. Yeah, it leaves us with only Citadel, or then we have to go outside the riding.
Getting
to bring
back
people together.
Citadel gives you a meeting place. Sure.
Well, keeping Citadel, because your proposal does include Citadel.
Yeah.
Your proposal does include Citadel, so it does leave us with one community hall.
Okay. Okay, questions very quickly?
I don't have any questions, no, but thank you very much for coming, appreciate it.
Dr. Martin?
I recall our previous conversation about gravel pits and the like, because a large part of your footprint is not residential. Is it?
There's a ton of industrial, and as I have commented with my colleagues, I have, there are almost as many prisons and now recovery centers as there are schools.
Right. And then the area north of the gravel pit area is undeveloped, large acreages. Are they acreages or are they farms out towards the city boundary?
They are like a mix of some of them kind of practicing farms, like acreages, but there are practicing farms there.
Okay.
They're like just north of the
You mean
city
working
boundary.
farms, not attempting to be a farm.
But what I will say is that I think because of the activity of the gravel pit, I'm not sure that area is designated to ever be kind of like more fully developed residentially.
Okay.
I think there are plans to keep like buffer zone between the gravel pits and more dense residential,
Thank you.
if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, Ms. Sampson?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
No, thank you, appreciate your presentation.
Well, thank you very much. And we did read your letter, and it stood out, and we're considering it.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'm sorry, we cut you off too soon, but are you in agreement that you wanted Calgary Simons Valley?
Calgary Simons Valley is what I would propose as the name.
S-Y.
Why Simons Valley?
No, the spelling is S-Y.
Oh, the spelling is
because
S-Y.
I had
Yeah.
some people who said S-I-M.
The spelling is S-Y.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
293 people in that little parcel. So we could,
Okay.
I
Okay.
think
You can absorb that.
committing, we could probably,
Keep that.
Then maybe I would be close to the 55,000 target because you noted that I would be slightly under.
Yeah, you want to be perfect. You want to be one that's right on, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next presenter, Mr. Baccaru. Please come forward. Have a seat and get comfortable, and please correct me if I was wrong on your pronunciation.
Yeah, no worries at all. It's Pranav Bakkaraju.
Baccaru, okay,
Yes.
thank you. And tell us where you're from. You presented
sure.
last time. You
I
work
did
in a
present
CA,
earlier.
don't you? You work in a constituency office.
I work for the gentleman who just finished presenting.
Oh, so you're tag teaming, okay.
You'll find this presentation is, if not identical, very similar to what you just had, so I will also be brief. But I'll say the same thing that Court did. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We do understand it's a lot of data that you're taking in, and a very important process for our democracy. So much appreciated. So I do live. My name is Pranav Bakkaraju. I'm MLA Court Ellingson's constituency manager in Calgary Foothills. I do live in Calgary, Buffalo, in downtown, but I regularly go to the Northwest to work, and I'm very familiar with the riding and sort of do that casework within the office. So I'll kind of high level cover some of the comments I did in my previous presentation, but I won't go into too much detail because you already have that info. But similar to what the MLA just said, I will echo our thanks for the acknowledgement of the growing population of the northern part of the city and specifically our northwest area, along with the fact that the proposed boundaries remain within the city of Calgary. We do hear from constituents, I hear directly from them often about how sometimes the Calgary suburbs are kind of seen as to be very far away from the city core, and they don't like that perception. They want to be a part of the city. So having a provincial boundary jurisdiction within the city of Calgary boundaries, having that aligned is very valuable for them. I've heard that both anecdotally and it makes sense objectively as well when you think about community associations and how they interact with representatives both municipally and provincially. It's just helpful to have that alignment. So thanks so much for that. Around the kind of cultural connections, as the MLA also pointed out, there is a very diverse demographic within Calgary Foothills, within the boundaries that currently exist and that are proposed. Whereas if you start heading a little bit more west into Cochrane or a little bit further north into more of that rural area, the demographics are quite different. The sort of shared values of the communities would be different. If there was any kind of advocacy that was being done, you would almost have two elements of people who live more in the urban area of the riding and versus the rural area of the riding. So in this manner that you've proposed it, we avoid that problem, so that's very appreciated as well. As Court mentioned, we have a very strong Chinese community, a strong, large community of African, Caribbean, Black communities that live in our area, Muslims and Hindus as well. So very, very rich in its diversity. And they're all represented through these various community associations. We brought up one of the challenges in the previous presentation with Evanston being sort of split off. I see in this proposed map that Evanston is now removed from our riding, and of course we'll be sad to not represent them anymore, but that being said, it makes sense from a logical sense, so thank you for that. Secondly, I will echo what the MLA was saying around Citadel. We were just looking at the map and identified those streets as being, it is east of Sarcee Trail, the ones that he was mentioning. Moving that to be part of the Citadel kind of community association group would be very helpful within the riding. And I think that last time you sort of joked about whether we should change the name or not, and I said I like the name Calgary Foothills for the aesthetic, but as you can see, I've lost that fight internally with our office and with some constituents who have said, and I do agree with them completely. In the constituency office, sometimes I get emails that are intended for the Foothills Hospital, or I get emails for the Foothills Federal Riding, which is south of the city, and I have to remind them and kind of share that difference. So if we do change this name, it would make a lot of sense to avoid that. And Calgary Simons Valley, it is Simon with a Y. I think that's an apt name considering the neighborhood communities. Actually, I learned a little bit more about the history of Calgary Simons Valley. I did not know that was the original name quite some time ago. So I think that it goes back to
for the electoral district.
Not the electoral district, just that neighborhood, that area of communities. So there are some people that were quite passionate about that. Is what we learned. So I'm just going to quickly check my notes here, but I think that kind of covers everything. I don't want to repeat too much.
Okay. Quick question: if we were to take in the area, east of
That's
Sarcee,
Citadel Grove.
Citadel, what would the border be, the boundary be on that little sliver?
So the boundary would remain Sarcee Trail, but there would be a bit of a cutoff, almost.
Yeah. So we have to describe that cutoff. So what would that be?
I've got it here.
I mean, do you mean just?
Yeah, I've got the city map. It borders backs onto a park, so it's one just little.
Citadel Green.
Citadel Green Northwest and Citadel Grove Northwest. There's only two streets,
Right,
and
right.
it would
I
kind of
get
be
that.
almost like a triangle kind of angle. It's hard
I
to
get
describe.
that, but Sarcee Trail couldn't be the boundary, right?
You'd have a bump out.
Yeah, you'd have a bump out. Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you describe what street is that?
That Citadel Green, so that's Citadel Green. It's actually a park, just scarped by the cave.
Yeah, so this, we just need a name for that.
We'll figure that out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
Citadel Green and Citadel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, I
we'll
see.
leave brighter minds to
Sure,
figure that out.
no worries.
Okay,
And I'll echo the point that the MLA mentioned that Arbor Lake has been our primary meeting spot, so that is a bit of a loss for us, but we understand, you know, you got to do what you got to do. In the north, there's just a lack of community association meeting spaces, which is a bit tough, but we'll have some events out of the writing, I guess is what that means, so.
Okay, questions, Mr. Clark, or sorry, Mr. Evans?
No,
Okay.
I don't have any, thank you.
Ms. Sampson?
I'm good, thank you.
Dr. Martin?
Even I have nothing more to add.
There is a first time for everything. But I think it's fair to say the Calgary Foothills has been well represented this afternoon, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Thanks for your time.
I thought it was Calgary Simons Valley. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kara? Is here, okay. So make yourself comfortable, identify yourself, and what area of the city you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Giancarlo Carra. I am a private citizen right now. When last we spoke, I was presenting when you were setting everything up. I think I took some time out for my son's soccer game and was sitting in my car talking to you. At the time, I was the city councilor representing Ward 9, East Calgary, which involves a number of constituencies, MLA constituencies. And I bestirred myself to speak to you because I think I was talking about how we were organizing the city and what we've experienced in terms of the city's electoral boundaries and growth trajectories and the importance of trying to skate to where the puck is going. And I'm standing before you today to say congratulations. I think you did a good job with what's proposed. And I imagine there's probably people who are happy with it and people who are unhappy with it. And I thought I would lend my voice to people who are happy for it.
Are you referencing any particular writing?
No,
or
I'm
the
referencing
city?
what you did. And so, like, I think to sort of reflect, I mean, you know, the fact that we're under a water advisory right now has a lot to do with decisions made by our representation and investments and things like that. And the arguments I was making to you is that we are becoming a much more urban province, and our cities are growing, you know, very quickly, and they have to balance investing in accommodating that growth with also maintaining the very expensive and extensive infrastructure systems that we had, and we got into a conversation that dealt with that. But, you know, I think I want to thank you for creating an extra urban riding. I want to thank you. I think what we've heard from the MLAs that have presented is how important it is to keep cultural communities and communities of interest intact. And I think you did a very good job of balancing that. And I think that creating an extra seat really helps. I do think that we are going to continue to grow very quickly as a city, and we need to invest in that city, and we need political representation to do that. And so I think that you guys have done a very good job of balancing all interests in this. And I just wanted to take time out of my private life right now to thank you for that work and to encourage you to hold the line, you know, in the event that there are more political forces trying to push you back to certain status quos. I think that this is an important change, and I feel like my comments were very much heard by this commission.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Martin, any questions or comments?
I was just looking in my notes to find out the conversation we had in the spring, but I can't.
I remember it was out of Edmonton. We were in Edmonton, and you were.
Yeah, I was phoning in from my car next to a soccer field.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mr. Clark,
Yeah,
any
please,
questions?
come back if I.
Maybe, I guess,
Clark.
so you were on council when the blanket rezoning discussion was happening. And
I was.
That seems to be, I don't mean to sort of poke at potential I mean, that's obviously an ongoing topic. And as a private citizen, though, but someone who has got a lot of background in this area, do you have any sense of where that might end? Like, what's the upshot of all that going forward? So if we don't have blanket rezoning, do we have targeted density? Does that whole idea go out the window and we sprawl on the edges? What do you feel is a most likely scenario?
I believe that our conversation went in this direction. And what I talked about was how in 2009, the city passed a municipal development plan that very clearly identified that we couldn't continue sprawling endlessly, and that we had to strike a better balance between outward growth and upward growth. In 2010, I became a member of City Council, and my professional expertise was really in helping cities across North America achieve better balances in terms of how they grow. And so what we tried to do was affect what the MDP was talking about. What the MDP was talking about was that over the 60 years, the municipal development plan, over the 60 years of the plan's life, the intention was to strike, instead of 100% growth occurring on the city's edge, you wanted to do 50% of the growth on the city's edge and 50% within the established areas. And so over the next 15 years, it was really sort of a battle to move from a regulatory system, a marketplace that was focused on outward growth, to a system that better accommodated both. What we tried to do at first was really sort of go community by community. We basically split the city into 41 multi-community areas, and we attempted to work with every community to figure out where their share of the growth would go. And what we found was that every time we had a conversation about that, the derailing conversation, not where do we put the parks and where do we put the rec centers and where do we put the main streets and where do we put the transit stops, it was how dense is the area right around my house going to get? And that was always a derailing conversation. And so I think in an attempt to get back to the more meaningful conversation, which is where are the major receiving areas supposed to be, let's establish a new floor for density across the city, and then we can roll up our sleeves and have the more important, more thoughtful conversations. We did that knowing that there would probably be political backlash, but we were sort of stalling out. So I think from 1999, when we first identified that we couldn't continue to grow the way we were growing, to 2009, the city's growth was 103% on the edge, minus 3% in the established areas. 2009 to 2019, which was sort of the heartland of the work that I did as a city councilor, we managed to go 10% redevelopment, 90% growth on the edge, which means that over the next 5 decades, in order to hit a cumulative 50-50, 58% of all growth has to take place in the established areas, and 42% has to take place on the edge. Now, that 42% number reflects, I think, the natural limits of growth. While we do live in a prairie and we're not bounded by mountains and oceans, we do bump up against municipal neighbors, and there are limits to growth, and the established places where you can continue to grow really represents 42% of all growth possible. So that means 58% has to take place in the established areas. I think that the universal upzoning was intended to create an environment where about 30% of that 58% would take place, and then the other 70% would have to take place in major receiving areas for growth. Things like the East Village, things like the bridges, things like the University District, like Truman's District West, and I think we need 40 or 50 of those over the next 5 decades, and that's really the planning challenge. But you need to have representatives both at the municipal level and the provincial level who understand that and understand the role of public investment in helping provoke the necessary private investment to get those outcomes.
Great, that's really helpful, thank you.
Okay. I found my notes.
Okay.
And we were talking precisely about this in the
Yes.
spring. And I just want to press you a little further. You offered some more granular
Happy
information
to
on it.
opine.
And what we were discussing then and what you outlined really is what I understand to be quite classic modern urban planning theory. And it's keyed to high transit nodes, collector nodes for populations that can use high transit so you can go up. Absolutely classic. And what you've just described about the relative proportions of the building isn't consistent with that, is it? I mean, there's an awful lot of struggle to get the densification along the LRT nodes.
Yeah, I would say that there are a number of barriers to get the kind of development we want to see along the, and some of it, I mean, whenever I'm talking about change to people in cities, I always sort of use the example of London as a food city, right? And, you know, London has been famous for hundreds of years as being an imperial capital with the worst food culture imaginable, considering the breadth of their empire. And in the last 30 or 40 years, London has gone from the laughingstock of the culinary world to one of the great food cities of the world. And there's a tipping point that happens in that situation where you need to get a critical mass of people who know what good food is and want to buy it. You need to have a critical mass of restaurateurs who know how to produce that and can cater to that clientele. And you need to have an entire supply network of suppliers who can bring high quality ingredients to the table. And until you get that critical mass, you're not over the hump. And I would say that the transition that we are seeking in cities across North America, and you know, I would say Calgary is an exceptional example of that transition, is to move from the post-war city of the automobile to the much more multimodal city and the polycentric city. And it's a very difficult thing because you need customers who want to buy, you need developers who are willing to develop, you need a regulatory system that supports that. And if I've learned anything in my 15 years on council, I think we arrived at council, there was a number of councillors who were very interested in negotiating a new deal with the development industry wherein growth would pay for itself. And if I've learned anything in 15 years, is that there is no growth any time in the history of the world where growth has exclusively paid for itself. It's always been creating as beneficent a relationship between public investment and private investment. And I think when it's done wrong, it's a public subsidy in private profits. And when it's done right, you are creating, you know, as sustainable economically, socially, financially, from a jobs perspective, a city as possible. And it's really important, backing up to the job of this commission, to create political representation that has a fighting chance of being cognizant of that in their representation of their constituents.
I want to do one follow-up, if I may, and that's that in your description of the relative percentages over the last couple of decades between growth in the central part of Calgary and on its periphery, the percentage change has moved, and yet there's still going to be considerable growth on the periphery going forward. And I don't want you to speculate. I understand there's been a complete changeover in the city council's thinking around this whole matter, which could only, I suppose, accentuate growth on the periphery.
I would say that most councillors and mayors who come in, they might have a more, I will say, suburban mindset, a more traditional or conventional approach to growth in mind. And as they spend time in the seat and they look at the numbers, I mean, let's take a look at like the water system. Like, you know, our expert panel just came back and said, you know, you have 15,000 kilometers of pipe inside city limits, which is a ridiculous amount of pipe for our relatively low population, right? Like, we have way more pipe in the ground, we have way more lane kilometers of asphalt road, we have way more curb and gutter than our population would like, we're out of whack. We're significantly more than Edmonton, and then we're oceans more than places like central Vancouver and Montreal and
But
Toronto.
you're kind of like Denver.
We are. We are, but the difference, of course, between us and Denver is that Denver is a metropolitan region and the city of Calgary is one jurisdiction, right? Like anywhere else you go in North America and you have an urban agglomeration the size of Calgary, you're dealing with multiple city councils and mayors, you're dealing with multiple tax bases, you're dealing with multiple fire departments and police departments. And so our unicity model, which was bequeathed to us in the 1950s by the McNally Commission, the provincial McNally Commission, really did us a favor in terms of creating as maximally efficient a governance environment for that post-war automobile-scaled city. And that gets back to the work of this commission, which is that it is our job to create a regulatory and governance environment that maximally sets us up for success as we move into the next city we have to build, which is a much more mixed-use, multimodal, and polycentric city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Sampson, any questions?
No, thank you, and thank you for coming out.
My pleasure.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming again and in person.
Well, it's really important. If I've learned another thing in my 15 years, is that governance is really important, and the work that you do has, repercussions that echo through history. And so I appreciate the work that you've done, and I just wanted to say good work, and please hold the line.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair.
Michelle Moore, next presenter.
I'm sort of keeping my distance because I'm afraid I might be getting something. So I will do my thing and then I will leave. I did a written submission to you in the first round. And so I will just bring up my comments for this round. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the work you did. The report, I've read your interim report. It seemed to be quite good all around. And I appreciate you guys all stepping up to do the job you're doing. It's not an easy one, so thank you. I come from Calgary Glenmore, and everything we've seen in the Calgary Glenmore plan looks pretty good. So I'd like to thank you for preserving the particulars of that riding, in that it's it is definitely a very cohesive community of interest. I noticed in your interim report that you gave very serious consideration to the comments you received in the first round, and clearly there was a consistent theme on the need for bringing effective representation to this growing province, or to continue to provide that. I saw in the report that you also recognize the importance of redrawing the electoral boundaries to recognize that increase in population. So thanks for the additional seats to Edmonton and Calgary. But really what I'm here to do is talk to you about the proposed hybrid riding of Calgary-Okotoks. And the reason I'm here to talk to you about that is because I lived in the county of Foothills for many years, decades actually, raised my family, ran a business, and owned land there right up to a few years ago. I was also an elected representative for the county of Foothills. In those days it was called the municipality of Foothills. For Division 6, which is exactly the area being proposed to be included in the Calgary-Okotoks hybrid riding. So I wanted to speak to that because, if you refer back to my notes for my first submission, I was talking generally about how I saw the differences between rural and urban experiences of life. And of course, I've been living in Calgary now for 15 plus years. And I said, as many other people did, and it was really reflected in your interim report, that there is a very significant difference in general between urban and rural life, and we all know that, and it was recognized in most of what you've proposed. I'm concerned about the Calgary-Okotoks riding as a proposal, as a hybrid proposal, because of my experience out there, and I'm still very strongly connected to people out there. And I just don't think it's a good place to try out a hybrid riding. So now I'm going to try to go straight to my notes and stay within that 6 minutes. I'm speaking against creating that Calgary-Okotoks riding, but I'd like to first say that I understand there are instances where hybrid ridings really can work. Fort McMurray seems to me to be the best example that I could pull from what I was looking at in the report. And knowing Fort McMurray as I do, which is not personally, but through my work as an elected person and beyond that in some political science work, it's evident that there's a lot of commonality between the people who live in the periphery of the city of Fort McMurray itself, in the Wood Buffalo municipality, and basically that's because everyone more or less works in the industry, right? So there's a lot of commonality there, and I can see how a hybrid riding could work there. But the same cannot be said for the Foothills County and the City of Calgary residents. If you were to drive south on McLeod Trail, and it becomes Highway 2, you'd pass Calgary's Legacy neighborhood on the east side of Highway 2 at 210th Avenue, and you'd pass the Belmont and Creekside neighborhoods on the west side. These are all typical high-density urban neighborhoods, right? Tons of shopping centers and so on. The opportunities and expectations in those neighborhoods are what every dense city neighborhood has, and people expect certain things there. But once you're south of 210th Avenue, you're going to see the landscape change dramatically, like very abruptly it changes. Some of those acreages that you see right from the highway were there in the 70s and 80s. They haven't even changed. They have not been subdivided. Of course, there's the odd one, but generally it looks very similar. And that's just what you see from Highway 2. You continue south along Highway 2, you hit the corridor to Dumbo Road, which is where I lived, or you can keep going to 552, and both of those corridors run east into the countryside. You'll see at the very beginning of both of those corridors, once you turn east off Highway 2, you'll see some of those kind of classic 2-acre parcels with the big nice cut grass and the huge house planted in the middle of it. But that is not really the nature of the vast majority of that area that's proposed to be included in this hybrid riding. Most people out there truly do live a real urban life or a rural life to this day. Even the people that are on 5-acre parcels are raising chickens, or they have a couple of horses. A lot of the larger parcels, 40 acres, they used to cut oats when I was there. We did it ourselves. I think there's still some of them, lots out there that are 40 acres when you get further east. Sort of so to 80th Street, it's when it really begins to change into those larger farm parcels where people are quite serious about what they're doing, even though it's not their main living. And then you hit 112th or 128th Street East, and it's big agricultural operations. It's as you quoted Ms. Littlewood in your interim report. She said that many of these rural residents belong to agricultural societies. They volunteer for the fire department. They eat a lot of hot dogs to raise funds for local things like they have out there, Foothills Hospice, the Siemens Sports Park. That was brought in after I left. But that is still the lifestyle out there. It is not a bedroom community by any sense of the imagination. Differences in the lifestyles were well described in my previous submission and by others. So what I'd really like to address specifically in this area with your report is the suggestion that hybrid ridings can lead to greater understanding and less division between urban and rural populations. My experience as an elected rep in the county of Foothills tells me that this is not likely and a likely outcome, and that it would be, if you got any of that, it wouldn't be pronounced enough to ensure effective representation. In the interest of time, I'll give you one example from my experience as a councillor. So of course, on a council like in the county, it's 7 divisions. I was the representative Division 6. We had to represent our constituents. We had effective representation, in my view, out there at the time. My Division 6 took in all of Dumbo up to 80th Street and 552 to 80th Street. Beyond that, it was the big farms. And when I first came out there, there weren't a lot of 5-acre parcels. There were some. We bought 40 acres ourselves. So it was at the beginning of the subdivision process into smaller parcels. So as farmland was being subdivided right at the very west end of Highway 552, just east of Highway 2, People there who were occupying those acreages wanted the speed limit reduced on Highway 552. But the farmers, large and small, from 80th Street on, did not want that. They weren't even happy that there were acreages being developed on that land, and they certainly didn't want anyone telling them that they couldn't drive 100 kilometers an hour to go to the feed store. So fortunately, I didn't have to represent both those voices, because Division 5, Mr. Greneveld, I don't know if anyone here knows the Grenevelds from out there, but Flores was my co-worker at the time, and he and I were able to talk about this as two different councillors within the framework of the council committees that we had, right? Farmers went out on that one, but my constituents understood that I had represented their interests and made arguments for them, and that, you know, the county council as a whole voted to support the arguments of Councillor 5 from Division 5. If I had had to represent both, I would have had one group very mad at me, and I wouldn't have been able to show up in local shops. I would have had them on my back, trust me. I had that happen to me in other matters where I was having to deal with two conflicting opinions within my same constituency. So it's really important to recognize that we have these structures for a reason, and that the biggest reason is that we learned hundreds of years ago that people really operate on emotion. They don't operate on logic, and the best outcomes for collaboration and finding understanding between urban and rural is when their representatives are speaking to each other in a structured environment. I really believe that. I experienced it. MLAs already have to deal with conflicts between constituents that are based on far more discrete differences than what I was describing. The understanding between rural and urban populations comes when representatives for each distinct community of interest consult within semi-formal or formal structures created for exactly that. Structures like the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, or the various government committees, or if we're very lucky, in the legislature itself. Those frameworks provide the parameters within which different viewpoints can be presented and policies can be hashed out with civility between MLAs and put to a vote where appropriate. Our entire government structure has evolved to provide a place where different communities of interest can be represented effectively and mitigate the inevitable conflicts that arise between different populations. I think it's really important to remember that when you're looking at hybrid ridings, and to imagine what it would be like for an MLA, never mind for the people who are being represented. Somebody's going to be left very disappointed, but the MLA as well is going to be in trouble. They're going to be attacked when they go to businesses inside the constituency. I've experienced it. It does happen. So, and nothing has changed. People have been this way forever, you know. So to summarize, I would agree that there are certain geographic areas where hybrid ridings can work, such as Fort McMurray, but this cannot be said at all, I don't believe, for Foothills County and the South City of Calgary residents. They're distinctly urban, distinctly rural, very different expectations, and I would encourage you to maybe not go that route on that proposal. Thanks again for allowing me to share my views. I would like to congratulate you and thank you for the tremendous work you're doing. I agree with the people that spoke before me. Overall, it's just been excellent work, and I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moore, and we'll mark you down for option 2 then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, because you've read it, you realize that it was not an easy, we threw it out.
Absolutely.
And we welcomed what you just said.
Yes.
And,
yes,
so,
I really appreciated it. I felt that your interim report was extremely balanced and realistic and encompassing of all the different things you had to think about. I do really appreciate the work you're doing.
Any questions from Mr. Evans on? Yeah, if you've had a chance to look at Appendix F of the interim report, there would be 18 existing hybrid ridings that aren't ones that are proposed hybrids. That's in the next column over. So for example, Airdrie Cochrane, Airdrie East,
mentioned Fort McMurray, Brooks Medicine Hat, Cypress Medicine Hat, Leduc Beaumont, Fort Saskatchewan, Vegreville, Grand Prairie, Wapiti, Grand Prairie, the riding named Grand Prairie. There's 18 of them.
Yeah.
I was interested that you chose Fort McMurray because Fort McMurray isn't really representative of anything else in the province, in that the city itself runs as a municipality.
Yeah,
Right.
the Wood Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is that wasn't a really great choice in terms of for your argument. I understand what your argument is, but
All right, yeah.
But taking your argument and the point, the important points that you've made, how would you apply them to Grand Prairie, for example? Or the other one that I think would be an interesting one to examine from your perspective would be Medicine Hat.
Yeah. So the reason I spoke specifically to this hybrid riding is because I'm very familiar with both. I'm not familiar enough. I played slow pitch in Medicine Hat. I interviewed the mayor there once when I was working for the Canada West Foundation. I've driven through Grand Prairie, but I don't feel that I can speak to them. The reason I felt I could speak to Fort McMurray is because I also interviewed the mayor at Fort McMurray back in the day and learned a little bit about that area and came to that conclusion on my own. And of course, the fact that it is one municipality, to me, that just sort of inherently gives you some of that structure already, right? Because you're going to have wards or divisions. So, but I acknowledge that, it may not have been the best choice. I don't think I can comment enough on the others because I really don't know how people live on the outskirts of Medicine Hat. There's lots of farming, right? Lots of oil and gas on the farms. Medicine Hat seems to be an urban town, but it's certainly not urban to the extent that Calgary is. That's about all I could say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Very quick question.
Sure.
You've given us a written report or submission earlier on.
Yes.
You've obviously done a lot of work on this. Have you come across any academic material that coincides with what you're saying? Like, have you researched that far into academic journals and things like that?
Do you know, I couldn't name something directly now, but I can say that I've studied political science at the university level. I read extensively. So when I made that sort of broad statement that our democratic system has evolved over time for the exact reason that I said, to avoid conflict, I think I've just absorbed that, that I've come to that conclusion from past studies.
Okay.
But if you like, I would definitely look through my material.
So hybrids are a real option and one
Yeah.
of only 3 options
Yeah.
that the history and the jurisprudence gives us. And that's probably the biggest struggle we have in terms of how do we best utilize all 3 options.
Where they apply.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the courts have said historically hybrids is, you got to do more hybrids
Yeah.
if you're wanting to avoid losing a rural support. So it's a real conundrum, and you've touched on a very, I don't want to say sensitive, but a really raw issue that we have to struggle with.
Yes.
So if you come across anything academically, please submit.
I'll send it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Dr. Martin?
No, nothing for me.
Mr. Clark?
No, just thank you. That's a fantastic submission, and I made very careful notes. So that was a really good example on the speed limit issues.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for following us throughout. Like,
Yeah.
written at the
Tell your
first
friends.
stage. Yes. Yeah.
Can we mark you down as a fan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or maybe I'll just wait to see what you do with the final report.
Good call, yeah. Don't commit too much.
All right, thank you, folks.
Okay, it is now 4:30, half hour past the time we were to close. But we have one more presenter, Mr. Armenko.
Thank you so much. Nice to see all of you once more. I realize I'm the only thing in the way of dinner, so I won't take up too much of your time here, and hopefully the exceptional presentation from the constituent of Calgary Glenmore and then the former councillor, Councillor Carra, hopefully took all of your tough planning questions, so I can deliver and extend my thanks and talk a little bit about the riding that I am very honored to represent at Calgary Currie. And so good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Nice to see all of you again. I'm Janet Aramenko, the member of the Legislative Assembly for the riding of Calgary Currie. I appreciate this opportunity very much to participate in the second round of consultations led by the Electoral Boundaries Commission. I'm here to support a fair and effective electoral map for Calgary, one that reflects how our city is growing, respects municipal boundaries, and ensures that residents continue to feel heard and represented as their communities change in really unprecedented ways. I want to thank the Commission for the thoughtful work reflected in the proposed electoral boundary changes. I'm heartened to see Calgary Currie remains a cohesive, intact riding under the proposal, and that matters deeply to residents of my constituency. I encourage the Commission to ensure Calgary Currie's boundaries remain the same as they're currently proposed. Calgary Currie is a diverse inner-city riding with a mix of long-established communities like Scarborough, Bankview, Sinalta, and Glendale, alongside rapidly evolving areas such as Shaganappi and Currie Barracks. About half of the households rent and half own, and housing ranges from beautiful century-old homes to new multi-unit developments. This diversity is a defining feature of the riding. What unites these communities is shared infrastructure, shared schools, transit lines, and a strong sense of place. Natural and built boundaries, such as the Bow River to the north, Glenmore Trail to the south, and Sarcee Trail to the west, help residents understand where they belong and how they engage civically. When boundaries align with how people live their daily lives, participation in community and trust in each other are strengthened. Disruptive boundary changes can often have the opposite effect, which I know is something that you have wrestled with, I'm sure, in the most meaningful of ways. I regularly hear from residents who say they are just getting used to the school trustee, to their representative, to their community, and they don't want to see that change again. Stability matters for civic engagement, especially in growing and changing communities. So thank you once more to the Commission for proposing that Calgary Currie remains intact. I also want to thank the Commission for respecting existing municipal boundaries wherever and whenever you could. Thank you for drawing a fair map and upholding the important democratic principle of effective representation by not creating hybrid ridings that straddle urban and less urban or rural communities frivolously. It sounds to me like great consideration was made in what is truly a challenging decision that tries to forecast and look into the crystal ball of population growth that none of us particularly know 100%. Although this is not something that directly impacts Currie, all changes must be, of course, considered as a whole. I want to acknowledge the Commission's recognition of Calgary's rapid growth with the addition of an extra seat. This decision reflects the real population pressures our city is experiencing and will help ensure representation remains fair and balanced as Calgary continues to expand. And while the additional seat is welcome, Calgary's growth is far from slowing down, and to truly reflect this reality, I urge the Commission to consider adding another seat in Calgary based on population growth. We know that across all sectors, schools, roads, healthcare, public safety, population growth influences funding allocations. As such, I encourage the Commission to add an additional seat in our province's largest city to adequately address its population growth. Calgary Currie is a clear example of how population change is accelerating. In my riding, it is not just because of sprawl, but because of intensification and redevelopment. For example, since the last redistribution in 2017, my riding has seen significant brownfield development, including, for example, the redevelopment of the Viscount Bennett school site, which alone will eventually add over 1,200 housing units. Ongoing development at Currie Barracks, where Canada Lands Corporation projects roughly 2,000 new households over time. Increased transit-oriented development supported by 4 C-train stations, a north-south BRT route along Crowchild Trail, and a Main Street development master plan on 37th Street, and widespread infill and multi-unit housing, replacing single detached homes with multiple titled units and secondary suites. These changes mean thousands of new residents will be added within existing neighborhoods, placing pressure on numerous public services and programs. I'm going to cut to the end here and just want to sincerely thank you for your time, your care, and your public service. You have put a lot of miles on in the last year or so. Your work has real impact on how people experience democracy in their everyday lives. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this process and to provide feedback in support of a fair, forward-looking electoral map that continues to serve Calgary's growing population well. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
No, I don't, okay, everyone wants to know.
Evans.
Okay.
They want me to ask the same question I've asked everybody else. What is your feelings on the eligible voter numbers as it relates to an electoral district, in addition to the general population numbers that we're using as factors to determine proper representation?
May I just ask back so that I'm clear on what you're wondering about? What is the percentage, particularly in inner city ridings, of ineligible voters?
No, eligible voters.
Eligible voters, but
In conjunction with the population that we're using, in this case, was it 58,000?
58, okay.
And then so looking at that, and then looking at also as a factor determining adequate representation of the electorate in that area.
Yeah, so I understand that we're roughly at about 4% over the average relative to other ridings, which I think is well within that window of what is acceptable. And it seems as though the new map has certainly balanced that out significantly in terms of bringing some of those much higher ranges down to a realm that is more legislatively in line with what is required. I'm not sure I totally understand your question, nor if I've answered it. I apologize.
So the population is everybody that exists that's alive, right? In the riding. The eligible voters would be only those that are 18 and have citizenship.
Yes.
Such that they can vote. Those two numbers are not going to be the same. So then, which number would you say is more important? The general population or eligible voters, or should eligible voters be a factor that should be considered? If so, how much should it be weighed?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, and I don't mean to be taking the political answer out by saying it should be a combination of the two, but I would expect, it really is, I would expect that for a riding like Calgary-Curry, for example, that's experiencing tremendous pressure on its public programs and services, recreation centers, roadways, schools, those individuals are accessing those services and programs regardless of whether or not they're voters. And so I would expect that as a result, the decisions that I need to be making as an elected representative is not exclusively for the people who are actually able to cast a ballot. It is in fact for every member of every community. And so when it comes to some of those challenging funding decisions around whether or not services and programs are actually rising to meet the demand of a community, whether or not they are eligible voters or not doesn't really play into whether or not it reflects the demand. And so a percentage, I suppose it's going to vary riding by riding based on the demographics and based on the rate of newcomers that are coming in who are eligible or not to vote. And so thank you for the clarification and understand that far better. I think ultimately my job is to serve the constituents of Calgary-Curry, whether or not they are voters. And as such, it is a number that I would weigh more heavily than the eligible voter figure.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for coming out and the kind words. I appreciate
Sampson.
it because we're not done yet. But at least we got some things right. Thank you again.
What's acceptable for Calgary-Curry? You're at 58,000 now. Could you take some more as the MLA?
Well, I think we already will. So we know that with some of the forecasted growth that those numbers are already going to be coming up. I appreciate that this is a domino effect. And so what happens in Calgary, Curry...
Cascading and domino is the words we use a lot.
I would imagine so. And so, of course, whatever is going to be impacting in Calgary, Curry, and whatever changes to the boundaries may be impacted there. I think less so than the number, because clearly we're still within a very, we've got a lot of wiggle room as far as what the number is. Less so than that, it's, I'd say, community integrity. And it is adhering to and following the natural boundaries that already create some kind of psychological integrity for the sense of community and where we spend our money, where we send our kids, where we frequent our different the third spaces in the riding. Less so than population. Honorable Justice, I would suggest that it is more about respecting the integrity of the communities. And so if we were to grow, I think we likely could. Let's not cross over Sarcee Trail. Let's look at, let's not split up Rutland Park. I think that would be of greater priority for the individuals on community associations and for neighbors than anything else.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Martin, any questions?
Thank you. I was looking at the old map, the current one, as well as this interim map, and they're the same.
Yes.
The boundaries are identical. So lucky you, because I think there's only 2 or 3 places which we have to kick it with. This is one of them. I wanted to come, though, to a remark you made characterizing Calgary as a whole and its growth. And you said, well, thank you very much, paraphrasing, thank you very much for the additional seat, but I'd like another seat. And what I would like to suggest to you is, where would you put it? This is a trick question.
I know, I was worried you were going to ask that. I have to see what other representatives in the room, so I don't upset anybody.
I think you're safe.
It is indeed a very challenging dilemma. I think given some of the work that you've done in the inner city, for example, where you've split Buffalo and Confluence into 2.
See, that's the trick, because you've already got a second riding.
Yes, of course.
But really, I want to ask you where, in your mind's eye, as a Calgarian, travel around, you talk with all your colleagues, and not only other MLAs, but everyone else that you know around the city. Where do you think, the growth warrants another riding?
Yeah, I realize that it would require some significant readjusting on all the fronts if it was to be on one of the on the edges of town where we would expect there's going to be significant growth. But of course, that would have significant ripple effects for all of the surrounding areas as well. But I would think that given the individual here was speaking to the riding of Calgary Okotoks. I drove down south into Okotoks just the other day, and the growth is phenomenal in and around the South Health Campus, in and around Seton. I think that given what the forecasts are likely demonstrating in terms of demographic growth in those areas, I would expect an additional riding could certainly be accommodated on whether it be at the south or in the northeast.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Yeah, so interesting. I've just looked at it. Curry is currently the 15th largest, 15 of 87, the 15th largest by percentage of variance. So you're already pretty big. You're 6% over. So I don't know if we would necessarily want to give you a whole lot more. I won't ask what you would give up, because that's unfair. So I won't ask that. But I am actually interested in some future development, because you mentioned the Viscount Bennett development, Curry Barracks, but you didn't mention Westbrook LRT. So that's a big blank space, and I know there's been a bit of toing and froing on that. I recall there was some change recently. Is there a plan to build something? I mean, that's that transit-oriented.
Yeah.
Feels like a real opportunity. Is it real? I mean, where's that at? Do you know?
The only reason I've excluded it from the report is because there's nothing really specific that we can yet point to. The big change that was announced probably about 18 months ago now is that the city bought that land back. The developers had been sitting on it for a long, long time, probably upwards of about a decade, and the city finally got fed up and said, we can't just leave this absolutely prime piece of real estate sit vacant any longer, particularly, of course, given the stresses on the city and given its proximity to the C train station. So it's back in the hands of the city. But as far as I am aware, there has been no no specific development in terms of what's actually going to go there. Once upon a time, I think probably 2 councilors ago, they talked about putting some soccer amenities on that site. And so for that reason, I haven't included it in my comments here, simply because whether it be residential or something else is to be seen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And sorry to be in a rush, but we have to have dinner. We have to have
Of
somebody
course.
in the next 45 minutes to be back here. Tell me you're happy with the name.
With Calgary Curry?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Good, good.
Yeah, of all the things. Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you so much. Nice to see
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back at 5:30. Okay.